From Screen Junkie Studios in the heart of Los Angeles, this is Screen Junkies Movie Fights. Now your host, Andy Signore. Today's episode is presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network.
Hello, Screen Junkies, and welcome to the championship battle of movie fights! Oh, this one's going to be so intense. We have Dan Madman Merle versus Mike Botanicus Carlson. Gonna be both here one-on-one heading this up, and it's gonna be full of surprises. They don't know that I've helped judging this episode. It's gonna be a lot of fun, so get excited and stay tuned. We have 5 awesome battles, lots of stuff happening. You wanna stay engaged on Twitter, which Lon is on, following on the feeds at SJ, at Screen Junkies on Twitter. You guys will be at home helping to vote for this show. That's right. We'll explain as we go, but get excited, make sure you're logged in there, and make sure you're commenting in the comments. We're here live on YouTube for everybody. Let's do this! Before I introduce everybody, I want to get our fighters out here because that's what you guys are waiting for, and these guys are awesome. They're going to be fighting awesome stuff such as best movie trilogy of all time, pitch a movie based on a commercial, and of course, the most asked for battle, E.T. versus Jaws. It's their favorite film, so we're going to get all through this. And again, follow along, hashtag at MovieFightsLive, hashtag MovieFightsLive on Twitter to get engaged in the conversation. First up, let's meet our fighters. Guys, he's had a long journey to get here, and he's actually tried to take the belt from Dan before. He didn't get it, but now he's up for blood. It's Botanicus himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Carlson! Hey, Max, why don't you get on that camera? That would be a lot more helpful. There we go. Thanks. There he is. Well, now there he is! We didn't see him until just then. Yay! Can you get... Yeah, there we go. There it is. Awesome. Mike, welcome, man.
Hey.
Awesome to have you, dude.
Good to be here.
Cool. Great. Mike, how are you feeling in this battle?
I'm feeling stressed out. The show is crazy. It's horrible to do this show.
It is.
There's so much prep. There's so much. But the stakes. I mean, my goodness.
You look like Tony Stark.
Thank you.
Is that what you're
Now
going for?
I feel good again.
All right, good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's going to have to get that belt the hard way. He's going to have to go through the current champ of so many belts. It's Dan Merle! Dan, there he is! Dan, look, cut to the camera. JT, cut to the camera. There you go. Thanks, JT.
Right, hang on.
We're making a show.
What this one is. Hang on.
It's like the first time you've done this. What's going on?
That's the throwdown. I just won that one. That's TV fights. Hang on. We got 1 second.
What is happening?
So the Legacy Movie Fights belt. I've spun that like 6 times. Here we go. This one is stuck to the TV fights belt. There we go.
Dude, how many belts is that?
That's a lot of belts. The belt is on the line. I'm gonna put these over here for safekeeping. Mike, you can't have these.
Well, I actually don't want them because I took from my girlfriend's closet earlier
Whoa!
a bunch of
Are you putting these belts on the line?
No, I can't do that. Oh. She'll be very upset with me, but these
Can you
are...
reframe that, Max? That's not framed very well. Sorry. It's
Yeah.
like
I can move
what's
this
going
a
on
little
here?
bit here.
So I just wanted
I can't
to
see
show
those belts in that
well,
shot.
The belts
Sorry.
here they are. They're just
There
they're
we go,
tiny.
Max.
They're
Frame
belts.
that 2 up a little bit so we see Max.
Belts
Mac.
for a lady. But yeah, no. If I lose, these are coming home with me because my girlfriend's gonna be very upset. I didn't even ask her if I
These
could
are some
take
pretty
these.
belts, I gotta say.
Yeah.
You guys have all brought some very fantastic belts, but this is the one that Dan covets, and I will take it, Dan.
Oh, I don't have it.
Are you putting this on the line, Dan?
Oh, it's on the line.
Because you have to. It wasn't a choice.
Well, I've been waiting to put that on the line for a
Guys,
long time.
this belt is fine. I know a lot of fans are like, finally! It's up there, and I'm so excited to do this. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm just gonna put it on the floor. Sorry. All right, here's how the show's going to work, guys. We got a lot of intense stuff happening, but I want to introduce what's going on here before we do it. The way this show will be done is not just by my sole vote.
Ooh.
A lot of fans are like, "Come on, this is the championship. Step it up, Andy." I listen, and I did. So this vote will be decided partly by the fans. That's right. What? You guys at home on Twitter, you will be voting at the end of each round on Twitter to deem who wins. Now, this is not a popularity contest, as Dan has sometimes pointed out.
No.
We are not going to say who the fighter is, or what their answer was. It's going to be 1 and 2. and that way only the ones watching, or just people who want to be dicks and be random, can go vote for option 1 or 2 at the end of each round, and I will be taking that into accord. You will have a say in this fight. So make sure you're on Twitter all along to check out our polls and vote along the show so you can help us decide who wins this belt. But that's not it, guys. I've also brought in an expert. Can we go over to the fan couch? First, I can introduce Lon Harris. Hey, Lon.
Hey,
You'll be fact-checking today's show.
can't wait. Very excited.
And you'll be also policing, making sure the Twitter's there. But right next to you is a fine gentleman. He's from Harvard Westlake. He's the debate coach. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Michael Beats.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
Hey, Michael. So now, Michael, we talked before the show. You're not a huge nerd. You don't know a lot about movies.
I've seen one of the Marvel movies.
All right.
I love this. So you are going to be helping me today. You are only about the arguments. Yes,
Only
sir?
the arguments.
We've talked about this. You'll factor in a little bit of the fun, a little bit of the persuasion, etc. But I want you to help me each round because you will have a say in this fight as well. Strict debate. Who gave the best debate? You can't let your personal take get involved because you won't have one. You're going to be listening just to the argument. Yes?
Yeah, no personal opinion.
What do you guys think of that? Does that make you more nervous or more excited, Mike and Dan?
If he's judging, does he take silly nonsense into account? Because if he does,
He said
okay,
yes.
then yes. Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
you
then
just
I
have to
feel
be good
fine.
at this.
I feel fine. Yeah.
Dan, how do you feel?
Great.
Good. All right, good. Also, we have a huge, awesome fan cam over there. Let's tune into all of our studio audience. Check it out. Hey, slide over there, Dizzle, or is someone missing? You slide over. There's a big empty spot. Spread it out. Yeah, now that looks much better. Did someone leave? Oh, someone left. Oh, sorry. They missed a show? Wow. Andrew, Amar, Dakota, Donald, Dizzle, and Moody. Who didn't show up? Thanks, Max. Cool. Doesn't matter. We're not live or anything. All right. Andrew didn't show up. Thanks, man. So Amar, Dakota, Dizzle, and Moody, thank you guys for coming here. You guys will also be chiming in throughout the fight if I need help. You guys ready for this? How excited are you guys?
I'm more excited than everybody.
We're super excited.
Good. You have the mic. You'll be spreading
Sorry,
around.
I didn't know.
So at
Excited.
certain points, I'll be also getting.
Yeah.
So this is the fans are engaged. We have a real life debate coach here. Lon's also helping me. This is a legit fight. Nothing can be asked afterwards. If that wasn't fair, we got all bases cornered. You guys follow what's happening here?
I did.
Any
I
questions
did.
before we get to this show?
Can we start?
Yes. Yes. What,
yeah.
Mike?
I was just gonna ask, can we stop? But no, we'll start.
We're going to keep going. Guys, now, before we go, I do have to say something very special. We'll be down at Comic-Con next week covering San Diego, so you can head over to Screen Junkies News on YouTube to watch all the interviews and stuff we have planned. So much stuff in store, but I want to let you know that Screen Junkies Central's coming back. We have tickets. They actually sold out in a day, which was crazy. Thank you guys so much. But we just opened up some more tickets, so if you show up in San Diego at the event itself and get there early, we will have some tickets available and also a waiting list that you'll be able to get to. So even if you have tickets, get there early too. All that information can be found on screendunkies.com/tickets, which hopefully will pop up. If not, screendunkies.com/tickets to learn all this information. If you aren't in San Diego, don't worry. We'll also be streaming a lot of this from Central over in Screen Junkies News and Screen Junkies Main over the next couple weeks. So bottom line, stay tuned. Lots of fun stuff in stored for Screen Junkies at Comic-Con. And I got to thank T-Mobile so much for helping make this happen. They're America's best unlimited network. They helped pull all this off, and I'm so grateful for this to happen. They've also really helped us bring a lot of shows that'll be coming on to Screen Junkies News in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. Tomorrow, you'll be able to watch us live as well, Dan. Flickbait is moving from news to the main channel.
Man.
4 p.m. here. You guys are going to love it. It's so much fun. Come check it out with us. And then SJU will be coming as a new morning show on news with Dan, myself, Spencer, Roth, Cornett, every morning starting on Tuesday, 7/18 at 11 a.m. But Monday, Spencer's there with Watching Thrones. You can learn all about these changes, but the most important one that's going to affect you is Movie Fights is going to be live here on YouTube every Thursday. What?
We're live right now?
We're live right now,
Oh,
and we're
no.
going to be doing this more often.
is
So
on
after
the internet
Comic-Con,
right now.
stay tuned. Guys, get excited because this will become a recurring thing where all of you will be able to join us every Thursday to tune into Movie Fights Live. I'm so excited for you to have that experience. Fans, you know what it's like, right? How fun is Movie Fights Live? The
awesome.
best. They're on their phone right now,
All
live,
fun.
interacting
So
with
much
all the other
fun.
people.
Guys, you're actually here at the live event.
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
have to do the phone thing.
That's the world, right? We live in. No, but I promise you guys will love watching at home live. It's so much fun to engage. Lon will be tracking you. That's all I got. Let's do this.
Cue the music.
What a lovely day! Are you not entertained?
Let them fight.
Wow, I love that intro.
Love it.
All right, let's do this. The fight, the belt is on the line. Round one. Now, guys, we did something previously that the fans really liked. We thought it would be only fair to bring it back this time. You will each be giving an advantage question to each other. That means you both have the opportunity to pick a question yourself that you thought would give you a bit of an advantage that you could answer first, prompting your competitor to have to answer second. Dan, you got the first advantage round, and the round you picked was Best Hitchcock Movie.
Yes.
I could have said that way more embarrassingly. No, Best Hitchcock Movie was the one you brought. This is your advantage. What movie did you pick?
I picked Rear Window.
Great.
Which I think is both the best Alfred Hitchcock movie and is also my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie. And it's really tough because Alfred Hitchcock has so many great movies, and you could pick 10 movies and argue about like why they're great. So I think it's really important to distinguish not just why these are two great movies, and I'm sure Mike's pick is great too, but why I think this is the best. And the reason that I connect Rear Window so much with Alfred Hitchcock is because it hits on this theme that Alfred Hitchcock has in so many of his movies. Voyeurism and obsession. These are things that he comes back to all the time. Sometimes it's the main theme of his movies, sometimes it's part of the elements of his movie, but it's present in almost every movie that he made. And what I love about Rear Window is that instead of seeing his characters as voyeurs, instead of the audience watching a movie in which a character is a voyeur, Alfred Hitchcock puts the audience in the shoes of the protagonist. If you haven't seen it, James Stewart plays a photographer who has a broken leg. He's confined to his apartment, and he has this big window that looks out on a courtyard. He can see all of his neighbors, and he starts to think that the neighbor across the way has murdered his wife. And what I love about this is this movie doesn't tell you that the neighbor across the way murdered his wife. You're learning through Jimmy Stewart's eyes as the movie goes on. You're learning the information as he knows it because you are literally watching along with him. And it's what I think is the best realization for him of this theme that he tried to express in so many different movies. Here, he ultimately succeeds in putting the audience almost in his shoes as a filmmaker. You're watching this movie along with the main characters. There's a lot more that I can go into as far as technical and everything, which I will, but that's the main reason why I picked Rear Window as the best Hitchcock movie.
All right, Mike, Best Hitchcock Movie.
All right. Obviously, Alfred Hitchcock, pretty good at making movies. We can all agree. I took, just to be full disclosure, I took an Alfred Hitchcock class in college, and I got a B- in it. So, if you guys are blown away by what I do here, it makes sense. All right. I've chosen Notorious, 1946 Notorious. Now, this is some people's favorite Hitchcock movie, but it's oftentimes, I feel like, forgotten. Maybe because it's in black and white, maybe because it came out a little bit before sort of like his big blockbuster phase. But here, I'll do a quick recap. So Ingrid Bergman plays a woman. She's enlisted by the government to infiltrate Nazis. Cary Grant is like her contact. And because her father is a Nazi, she's the perfect person to go and infiltrate and learn, what the Nazis' evil plans are. So before this mission happens, Cary Grant falls in love with Ingrid Bergman. So it's very complicated when she gets entangled and has to essentially act as a honeypot for an evil Nazi, which ends up having her marry this guy and carry on a relationship. This movie is the best of all the Hitchcock movies because it's not just suspenseful and it's not just filled with like hair-raising moments. This is emotional suspense. This is relationship horror. This is a love triangle of like the worst, most perverse kind. You have Cary Grant playing a character who is passive-aggressive and mean, and instead of being loving and supportive when this woman needs him the most. And then you have Claude Rains, honestly, one of the more sympathetic characters in the movie, married to a woman who does not love him, a man who wishes this woman would just earnestly love him. This is something that goes deeper than most Hitchcock movies. Most Hitchcock movies are amazing at tension and thrills. This thing goes even deeper. This gets to the core of its characters more than any other Hitchcock movie. Rear Window is like a great movie, but the conflicts and the story and the themes of Notorious go deeper and offer the viewer like a more complex and ultimately rewarding experience.
All right, now great. I want to start this fight, but just so the audience at home, because I forgot to mention, because this is an advantage round, Mike, if you win this round, you get an extra point. And then Mike will get an advantage round next round, and then Dan, if you win Mike's advantage round, you will get an extra point. That said, I got that out of the way. Fight it out, guys.
Here's the thing about Notorious. I rewatched it last night because it'd been a while since I saw it, and for some reason, Notorious is one of those movies that and maybe this is me not being as as familiar as I should be, but I get it confused with Spellbound and Suspicion, and like I feel like that's part of an era of Hitchcock movies that with Cary Grant that people are kind of like, which one is that? Like I had to think for a second which one is Notorious, but I went back and rewatched it because I didn't want to rely just on that, and I found it to be like you're right. The movie the plot does rely on the character connections, but I felt like, Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant, they meet, they fly to Rio, she's conflicted, and then literally within 30 seconds, they're just like walking up a hill, and then they kiss, and now they're in love all of a sudden, and then Cary Grant doesn't care about her, and he's a total dick throughout the entire movie, but then he's not, and I just felt like the character shifts were not handled very well in that movie. They could have been handled better. I felt like Hitchcock was a little more concerned with the themes and the technical aspects than the characters. And I think so much of the plot relies on that's kind of the weak point. It's a bit of a slow start to kind of get you into it.
I would argue, though, that the characters in this movie are actually like more fleshed out and a lot deeper than a lot of the characters in those other movies, because like we already set up that Ingrid Bergman's character is like promiscuous, whatever that means. But like especially in the time that it was made, women were judged very harshly for that. So you've already set her up sort of maybe as having sort of an erratic life, social life. And Cary Grant, like, he doesn't admit that he loves this woman until the end of the movie, until she's been through the friggin' ringer. Like this, they do have this quick romance, but like it makes sense in the context of who these characters are and what we've set up for them in the past. So it's something in the Rear Window. I feel like we sort of just get like a cool playboy kind of Jimmy Stewart character that doesn't dig as deep into who he is and what his psyche is as we do in this movie.
See, but I think Rear Window in a way addresses the characters' relationship a little bit more, because you have Jimmy Stewart, you have Grace Kelly, and kind of what the movie's about. I mean, it's what the last shot of the movie is about. Is Jimmy Stewart is this kind of thrill-a-minute photographer who has this girlfriend who's kind of saying like, I want to get married, but you won't settle down and stay with me, and she's saying, can I at least go with you? And he's saying like, this is not the life for you. You don't want to be part of this. And through the course of that movie, they both kind of learn to see from the other one's vantage point. Jimmy Stewart kind of learns the lesson of, listen, if you go out looking for this kind of an excitement, you know what? One of these days, it's going to come finding you. And he almost dies at the end because of it. Grace Kelly, getting involved in that, also almost dies. And I feel like by the end of that, they really developed those two characters' relationship through the events of the movie in a much deeper way than I found in Notorious, which to me seemed like the plot required them to feel certain ways. I feel like Rear Window, in telling this murder mystery, also kind of takes these characters full circle. And that's ultimately what the movie is about these two people kind of being exposed to the worst of each other's worlds and learning that, hey, I understand you a little better, and the implication being that they can now be together because of the events in this film. So I think it does kind of combine suspense, terror, mystery, a romantic angle in a more cohesive way than I think Notorious did.
Well, I mean, I think as far as Jimmy Stewart's character in Rear Window, the way I read it is this is a guy who just like wants to get laid some more. Like he's a guy who just wants to see other girls. Like he's giving all these reasons and intellectualizing things. But if you really look through it, if I knew this guy and he was like if my friend was like, hey, my photographer boyfriend doesn't want to get married because he gave me this laundry list of reasons, I'd be like, oh, he wants to be single still. Like he's running around. I think that the character is a lot less deep, and like, as what you're saying, like the characters in Notorious are erratic. Like the movie does not resolve. The movie is a lot more complex. You're the one who has to go on the journey. Like they don't resolve it and get married at the end of this movie. Like there's a resolution in the sense that Cary Grant says I love you, and Ingrid Bergman is like, why didn't you say that before? Why would you just not say that? Like we end on a note of like he does rescue her, but this is not a happy ending for these two characters. Like I think that's like a much more interesting way to sort of resolve something than making it sort of like wrapped up in a nice little package. I
don't know. I just think that it's telling a more complete story with characters is what appeals to me more than just, again, kind of the back and forth, the swing. I didn't really find myself rooting for Cary Grant at all. I didn't want him to kind of come out on top, and I feel like the movie they play this end part as kind of a triumphant moment. I'm like, the movie I don't think that his character got the service that it needed. Well, but apart from character, I just want to talk about with Rear Window, because that's part of it. I think story and character are part of it. I want to talk about the technically why I think this is Hitchcock's best movie, because I think completely apart from a story angle, from a technical angle, what he did in building that set. And again, in showing that entire movie takes place in one room, and you don't even realize it because you're constantly moving around. That entire movie takes place in his apartment. It does not feel claustrophobic for a second. And what he did in constructing the set and choreographing everything, just from a technical directing angle, how he got all of that action to tell that story and shot it from so many different angles over so many days and brought you into that world so completely, I think, beyond even the story aspect, technically, I think this is a superior film as well.
Well, I mean, as far as visual, I mean, look, this guy knows what he's doing visually. Well, I've said before, yeah, believe it or not, this guy knows who to hire to make his movies look good. Because, yeah, there's Notorious. I mean, if you want to talk about beautiful shots, Notorious has this amazing crane shot that cranes down into the middle of this party, and Ingrid Bergman is holding a key, and like it makes you see, oh wow, this part. But all it comes down to is that she has stolen this key to the wine cellar, which has uranium. I did research. I looked at other critics. Roger Ebert said Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious is the most elegant expression of the master's visual style. And God bless Roger Ebert. He knows what he's talking about. I think that, like, yeah, Rear Window is great. Like, he's made this movie look like he's done a lot with a very small space. But I think as Notorious, the shots, I mean, the framing of things from the start of when she's hung over and there's a glass with Alka-Seltzer in it, and then exactly the same shot comes later with a glass with arsenic in it when she's being poisoned. Like, these are amazing, beautiful things that call back, like, stuff you wouldn't necessarily notice on the first watch. These are things that make the movie a rich, more rewarding experience if you come back to it over.
All right, I'm trying to keep this loose because this is a championship, now it's time for final closing arguments. Again, tell me your last closing here. Why is Rear Window the better film over Notorious? And then, Mike, tell me why Notorious is the better film over Rear Window. Here we go.
Well, for me, it comes down kind of to what Mike was saying, and what you see in a lot of people talking about Notorious. They talk about that shot with the key, the shot with the glass, the shot, and I feel like there are a lot of great shots in Notorious. I feel like if you look at some of the stuff for the time, people are like, wow, that was a really good shot. I think that Rear Window, more than having great shots, it was the style, it was the expression of Hitchcock as an auteur, and living through his eyes, and him putting the audience into his shoes and living this world as a voyeur, and him kind of expressing his own psyche. That, to me, nothing says Hitchcock more than that. And the fact that he was able to do that, to make a movie that was funny, because there are funny jokes, that was a mystery, that still holds up. To this day, I think it is as compelling as it was the day that it came out. It is a murder mystery. It is a thriller. It is genuinely scary at the end with Raymond Burr. It has all of these elements of a great film, plus the ability to take his own personal style and marry it to that story so well and express it so well. I cannot think of another film, to me, that Alfred Hitchcock put his personal stamp on more than Rear Window, and that's why I think it's his best.
Mike, final thoughts.
First of all, I want to say, as far as rewatching Notorious and rewatching Rear Window, Notorious does not have, in my mind, a bad beat in it. Rear Window has an ending that's kind of doesn't age well, because he like clicks the camera and there's a flash and it like keeps the bad guy at bay for like a good 60 seconds, and it's just kind of goofy, and I feel like it should be docked points for that. That being said, look, these are both good movies, but I think that Notorious is in the when you look at all of his work, is almost an anomaly. Is a much more interesting look. This is the time when he actually wanted to go deeper. This is something when he wanted to do characters that weren't just sort of archetypes or like caricatures is a little harsh, but I'll say caricatures. This is something where this is a movie that I think is the most interesting of his career. And if you'll indulge me, I'll quote some more famous smart people. Francois Truffaut called Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious the quintessential Hitchcock film. Truffaut knows what he's doing, folks. But I will sum up with this, and these are my own words. Rear Window is a great ride. It is great. It is thrilling. It's suspenseful. But Notorious is a greater, deeper, richer, more deeper experience while watching it as a film.
Wow, I gotta say, Mike really surprised me there and brought some serious Hitchcock knowledge that I did not expect. So that was a really tough fight for me. Lon, let's go to you first while Mike gathers his thoughts. I'll come to you, Mike, next. But Lon, what are they saying online?
Yeah,
also the poll will now be up, so go vote. Sorry, 1 for Mike, 2 for Dan. 1 for Mike, 2 for Dan. No popularity here. You have to watch a show. Again, it's about the arguments, guys. It's not who you like. Try and really get in my shoes because you always complain about it. Now's your chance to be the judge. It's harder than you think. Lon, what are they saying?
Psycho came up a lot. Strangers on a Train, Spellbound, North by Northwest,
So
Vertigo.
Sure,
all of those were thrown out. A lot of people pushing for Psycho and then other people yelling at them that they should watch more Hitchcock movies. That was a lot of...
That's assuming that we haven't.
That was a lot of the back and
Well,
forth.
they're talking to the Twitter people.
Right. I'm not talking about you guys.
Sorry, I thought they were yelling at us.
No. I mean on Twitter, and then a lot of people were suggesting The Birds, and then a lot of people were yelling at them that is his worst movie. So there was a lot of discussion, those side discussion going on. Also, a lot of people took issue with calling Notorious Hitchcock's most personal film. A lot of suggestions for what that might have been. Maybe Marnie, maybe Vertigo. Personally, for me, I mean, I think this is a really hard one to judge. The only argument that I didn't really love that we heard was I get it mixed up. A lot of people on Twitter backed up like, oh, I also get it mixed up with Suspicion or Saboteur or some of the others. Like, I don't know. I don't have trouble keeping it Notorious different from like Spellbound, which is Gregory Peck or something. So I don't know if I was really won over to that, but otherwise, a really intense round, really tough to judge.
All right, now Mike, as a debate coach, I'd love to get your thoughts. Based on that argument, who do you think won and why?
Well, as a debate coach, what I do is I look and see what arguments go unanswered first and figure out if those are persuasive. And the argument that I feel like is dropped is at the very beginning about Rear Window, where we talk about taking the audience into the eyes of the characters.
Yes, being in shoes.
Yes, and that argument I feel like everything else I feel like gets addressed back and forth with no real resolution. That single argument though kind of carries through that that's the best, that is why this is the best movie.
Because you're in his shoes, really experiencing it with them.
I said it was a ride, though. So that's kind of what it is.
Got it. Interesting. But your take was because I'm having trouble. That's why I want to get your takes. It did really feel like they were hitting each other back and forth.
It was back and forth. I would say, as a piece of advice, you need to figure out how to resolve those when you're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
How do I decide?
Yeah.
How to decide between two conflicting things.
All right, that's great. I'm delaying because I want the fans to vote. Lon is checking the fan vote. Let's go to the comments. I'm going to go to the fans over there. Who was listening? Who wants to chime in? Amar? Who give me something good, Amar? Who gave the best argument here?
This is very hard. I think Dan got it for pure passion, and I liked his arguments.
Dizzle. Or yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say it's a nail biter because both good movies. A lot of people like both movies. I like both movies, but hearing the arguments based, I would have to say Mark gave a better argument with it.
Mike, you mean Mark?
Yeah,
sorry.
Gave a better argument with it, and
okay.
Yeah, I would just say give a better argument with it.
Yeah, Dizzle.
I gotta go with Dan because what he said about us being the viewer and then being on the ride, and I love point of
Moody,
views.
real quick.
I'm not gonna lie, I've never heard of Notorious until right now, but Mike actually did a really good job of selling me on the movie, but I think that Dan had a little more passion.
All right, so everyone's leaning towards Dan. Let's say, what are the vote on the audience poll? Where are we at, Lon? Is it close enough to say a winner?
It is extraordinarily close.
Of course.
Yeah, I just refreshed so we can hopefully get... so I have 51% to 49%.
Jesus. Wow.
Do you want to let it play for another second? Or
how many people weighing in?
279 total votes so
It's
far.
almost like he gave them two blind options that they weren't sure which to pick from.
I told them one and two.
Yeah.
All right, so who's leading by the 51?
Option 1, Mike Carlson leads 51% to Dan Murrell. Option 2's 49%.
This is like Florida 2000.
There's hanging chads all over the place.
Oh man! All right. Here's where I stand because it looks like they're leaning towards Dan though. I had the fans and I had the debate coach both picked. The fans in the room, but then so it really does come down to me. It's surprisingly, I heard a lot. Mike surprised me, whether that's fair or not. He really came with armed facts back, and I think being that he was the disadvantaged one here, I gave him a little bit of an edge just because I was very impressed he was able to take you toe-to-toe in your advantage around Dan. That said, I did make a note also. The protagonist's shoes is really one thing that's like, that is a very good reason. And there wasn't anything as iconic from your argument, Mike, that made me sway to like, oh yeah. You did do a very good job, though, at making me feel good about Notorious. And I was like, interesting. But I'm going to go with sort of the fans in the room and Mike to sway me a little bit towards Dan, just because I think that was a very strong point that didn't get addressed. So I'm going to give Dan the first point. Oh, wow, bravo. Man, that's a nail biter. All right, but Mike, it's your turn for your advantage round.
I am so excited.
Mike, you had a choice to pick any question, and you chose to pitch a Botanicus solo movie, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, so you want to pitch a Botanicus solo movie. Mike, go ahead. You get to go
All right,
first.
so because some people are probably new, so I probably have to let people know who Botanicus is, just in case.
Just in case.
Just in case.
It's true.
So on the E.T. ride at Universal Studios, there's an important figure. Steven Spielberg is the one who talks about him, and he tells you that you need to get E.T. home to the Green Planet, which is where he lives, because he's gotten a distress call from his teacher, Botanicus, as Steven calls him. And we see Botanicus, as Steven says, and he's a very important figure. Now, I am what you would say obsessed with him. There is a book about him. There's actually a video game that came out a couple years ago that it was no longer available for iOS, unfortunately. I tried to get it, but they pulled it probably because it was bad. But that doesn't mean the character is bad. So Botanicus, as I've been calling him, is E.T.'s teacher. So this is an E.T. spin-off, essentially.
Okay.
All right. So I take you to Brodo Asoji, which is the real name of E.T.'s planet, a.k.a. the Green Planet. Interior, small classroom. Now, there are unruly kids. These are kids that are bad. They're throwing paper airplanes. They're setting off, whatever the Brodo Asoji bottle rocket version is, okay? There's characters that are real, by the way, named Flop Glopple, which is real. That is canon. There's a character named Orbidon. He's in there, too. He's messing around. Now, a substitute teacher in that class says, hey, settle down. Now, one student lights up a space cigarette and says, shove it, old lady. Now, we zoom in, and the student is a young E.T., a.k.a. Zrek, Z-R-E-K, which is his canon real name, Zrek, Z-R-E-K. Now, this is the E.T. from, obviously, the movie E.T. And the substitute teacher runs away because this has happened over and over again. Substitute teachers try to deal with this class, but they can't because these kids are so out of control. Well, who can deal with these unruly kids? Enter a young college professor, Botanicus. He comes in, he flips the chair backwards, he sits down, and he says, playtime is over. Main titles, Botanicus, Dangerous Minds.
Oh.
Botanicus teaches young E.T. and all these students how to be great.
Prequel?
Yes.
Okay.
Prequel.
Before E.T.
Before E.T. Teaches all of these kids how to be great citizens of Brodo Asoji, a.k.a. the Green Planet.
Does Coolio do a song?
No.
Okay. That was important for me. Dan,
That
we'll
is
come
very
back and
important.
hear more about Mike's Dangerous Minds pitch. But Dan, how are you turning Botanicus into a solo movie?
I mean, Mike is right. Botanicus is a very important creature in ET lore. Of course, he had an advantage on me as far as knowledge, but I went back and tried to do as much. There's not much out there about Botanicus other than the fact that he was in the ET ride.
Yes.
And that's about it.
There's a book.
There's a book that I didn't have access to, so I decided to kind of take what I know of Botanicus from what little I was able to read, and what I know of E.T., and really I wanted to construct a really great adventure, because I feel like that's what people want with E.T. They want an adventure. E.T.'s species are obviously explorers. That's how E.T. got stranded on Earth to begin with. They were exploring, they were taking samples, so mine does not actually open on their planet. Mine opens on a spaceship, much like E.T.'s, led by Botanicus, who is leading an exploratory mission out to find other planets, other life forms, other civilizations. When the spaceship crashes, they're stranded on this strange planet. The ship is broken, but they're smart. And this is what I loved about E.T. was like you kind of got an idea that like his entire race were kind of scientific geniuses. They had all these powers that the E.T. made things float, but you never really got into what all they could do with those powers. So I had Botanicus and his ship crashing on this planet. He meets a group of villagers. There's a young girl. There's her dad, who I'm thinking is maybe like a Martin Freeman type, somebody who can do human
or alien?
Humanoid. Humanoid. Kind of like Star Trek, where you go to a planet and they're mostly human, but they're alien enough. I think like a Martin Freeman could give you the kind of humble villager type. Add a little comedy. This isn't a totally serious thing, but it's they are meeting these villagers and they're basically enlisting their help. This is kind of a pre-industrial society, but they're scientifically curious, and it's kind of a cultural exchange. However, there's a neighboring village that is threatening their village, led by, I'm going to say, like a Christoph Waltz type, a very kind of aggressive type. And basically, as they become friends, Botanicus and the crew of his ship decide they are going to help save this village from this neighboring village who's trying to attack them and take things over. So the main thing that I wanted to do is I want to see more of like what these aliens can do. What is their species capable of? I want to get more into their scientific knowledge and exploration. I want to get more into what crazy weird powers they have and how they can be used. And I think if you do that in a sense of like they're making friends with the species, they're defending this village, it's kind of like a Seven Samurai type thing, which is a classic story, and it's one that I think you can do really fun. And basically a story of these two cultures meeting, coming together. They repair the spaceship, they leave armed with all this cultural knowledge, but it's kind of an expansion on the E.T. lore. But you can also go into some details that we just touched on E.T. And again, featuring, I think that Botanicus can give you a strong character, one who's more knowledgeable than E.T. You don't have that learning curve that E.T. had. He seemed kind of young and inexperienced. I think Botanicus, you're going to jump over that and you're going to really learn more about these species and about him as a character and a leader and a friend and a alien.
Well, just as I was surprised to know but Mike had his Hitchcock knowledge, I'm very impressed in how deep Dan went in his Botanicus pitch. So really great start. Mike, go ahead, fight it out.
I would like to say for the record, though, mine is a totally serious thing.
Okay.
Unlike Dan's, who's frivolous. I did forget one element. This is a musical.
Oh, that is a huge thing.
This is a musical, and if you would indulge me, I do have a guitar and a few pieces of the musical written. If we would like to hear.
I will allow that.
Sure.
Is this the first musical performance on Movie Fights?
I think so.
All right.
Here, I'll turn my mics for your guitar and this will be for your vocal.
Oh, shoot.
I'm going to move this over a second. I'm just going to take this away for a minute.
It's way out of tune.
Let's take some time tuning. That's always good.
Did someone sabotage me?
Best part of the concert.
I'm so glad we're live now. How can we not get Mike a roadie?
It's going to be out of tune, but that's okay. All right, so this song is when Botanicus teaches E.T. about healing plants. All right, so he would just like kind of put his head on E.T.'s head and go, well, there's a plant that's dying and it doesn't have a chance. Take your hand, let it linger. Use that magic finger. Bring it back to life. Go ahead. Play God. So that's one of the things he would teach E.T. early on.
All right, well, if you have more, you can use it, but I got to get Dan in on this. Go ahead,
I do have more, but
okay,
I can...
but we'll come back. Keep your guitar.
I have some problems. Mainly the fact that I just, as a moviegoer, and I think as moviegoers are starting to see, I'm very tired of the idea of a spin-off movie being a prequel and showing us young blank. How many times have we seen young blank and their teacher? I think that's a bit overused as a trope. I don't think we need to see young E.T. I think I learned more than enough about E.T. in the first E.T. movie we got. Secondly, they don't speak English, which contradicts the E.T. lore that we already know. So you're doing the other thing that I hate.
This is translated.
Oh, this is translated.
Yeah.
So it's like...
they speak in Proto-Azosian.
Of course. I assumed that.
Well, then that's good, because I was hoping that you weren't going to completely... I mean, you pretty much shat upon the E.T. that we already know. I just want to make sure you weren't going to completely do it.
Never.
You say it's serious. It doesn't sound very serious to me. This sounds like a bit of a mess to me, if I'm being honest.
No. I will. Here's the thing. You brought up a great point, and I'm glad you did, because it's a perfect intro for the next song. You're saying, okay, we don't want to see just E.T. young, and I totally agree. Like, we don't want to just have this be E.T.'s origin. It's not E.T.'s origin at all. That's definitely part of it.
It's just about a young E.T.
It's not young E.T. is in the movie, but you're also this is focusing on Botanicus, so you're getting into things like his love life. So like, yeah, there is another teacher at the school who falls in love with Botanicus, all right? And this is kind of like a pop punk type song. He is E.T.'s teacher. He's a smart and thoughtful creature. He'll teach these kids, he'll show them how to grow. Botanicus the wise, when I look into his eyes, I know that he's the lover that I need. Botanicus, won't you love me? You're the type of man that a woman needs. I want to live with you inside a giant turnip. So it's not just about E.T. It's also a love story between a female character named Botanicus that falls in love with E.T.'s teacher, Botanicus.
I have a question. Are
All right,
these songs also in the native Asgogian and translated?
Yes.
And how will that work?
Well, I mean, it would look. Proto-Azogian is a similar like it sounds similar to English. So as far as like, obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but the melody is going to be the same. And yeah, there's going to have to be a couple different corrections when we're translating the language. I totally agree with you.
Of course, yeah.
And as far as we're doing the stranded thing in your movie, it's stranded. It's the exact same beat as the first one. Like, we're going to go get stranded, and then we're going to introduce a bunch of other characters. We've never been to the Green Planet before. This movie exclusively is about the Green Planet and its inhabitants, okay? Like, why would we want to, instead of just exploring this wonderful world that we've never seen before in a movie, why would we go somewhere else and then learn a whole set of new characters? If you've been on the E.T. ride, you have a lot of questions about the different characters, like Orbitron, the Mushroom Man, who says, "Welcome home, you've arrived." We want to know more about him. We don't need another character like the Martin Freeman character or the Christoph Waltz character. We want to know about Orbitron.
Maybe you do. I don't so much. E.T. Ride's not something that I come out of with a lot of pressing questions. There's not a lot that has haunted me about it. I mean, we can argue about our premises all day. I as a movie fan, again, I'm just a little more worried. This is a prequel musical, serious classroom drama, sci-fi. This just doesn't. It just sounds like a real mess to me. It sounds like you wanted to sing some songs and cobble together a few ideas.
Absolutely. I want to get your closing here. So again, why is your film the one that's more important than Dan's?
Look, absolutely. This is an experimental film that mixes a lot of different styles on a lot of different tones. It's going to take a person with a skilled hand, a filmmaking hand, and a great writer to make this happen. Of course, I'm the writer and director of this when it happens, and I will know exactly how to execute it. So yeah, right now in the abstract, maybe it sounds like there's a lot, but it's because I'm throwing a lot of different fun elements at it. Things that true E.T. fans that love the ride, that want to know more about the Green Planet, aka Proto-Azogi, want to know. If you just look down what we said, what do you rather hear? Fun pop punk songs sung by E.T. aliens, or do you want to just like go to a farm where Christoph Waltz has bad Star Trek makeup? I mean, just look at the things I've presented and look at the things that Dan has presented. What do you want to see more?
First of all, you're doing that tactic where you make your options sound great and you make my options sound really bad by oversimplifying it and bringing out things that you don't like.
That's what I'm doing.
This would be an exciting.
This is movie fights.
This would be an exciting. I'm just calling you on it. This would be an exciting movie. This would be an exciting adventure sci-fi movie that people are actually gonna want to go see. Your movie will bankrupt a studio. I promise you this. It is a complete disaster that no one will watch it. No one will see it. It's gonna lose $200 million, and it's going to kill the franchise. And this is not, I don't want to kill this franchise, and I know that you love it. I want to let this franchise thrive, and I just feel like your idea is fun, but there's not much thought behind it, and I want to make a great movie. That's what I want to do more than anything.
All right, time. Lon, what are they saying online?
There was some disappointment in a classroom setting from Mike. I think people wanted more of an adventure story, but once the songs came in,
that helped.
That really
helped
the Adam Sandler.
He gave us a touch of the movie, which you're either in or out.
And the viewers are really desperate to hear what our debate coach has to say about what happens when music begins in the middle of a round.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and you please vote again. Option 1 will be Mike. Option 2 will be Dan.
But make sure you vote on Twitter, not
not on YouTube. Vote on Twitter at Screen Junkies. You can tweet at Screen Junkies. Vote 1 for Mike Carlson, 2 for Dan Murrell. Go vote right now as we talk. Go ahead. Yeah, but Mike, let's get your thoughts. Interesting round, and we said we would count some creativity. I'm curious how you roll this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to vote for Mike in this one. I think Dan lets the debate be too much about Mike's, and even though he keeps just attacking it, I don't know anything about what Dan's movie is going to be about. I may not love Mike as a writer and a director, but I only have just met Mike. So I trust that. I mean, I feel like there's a more complete movie on Mike's side than on Dan's side. The songs clinch that.
Yeah, well, you know what's weird? I have the same thing because the last thing Dan said was, yours is fun, or you said yours is fun, but not much thought. You admitted it was fun, and he put in way too much thought.
Wait. He wrote 2 30-second songs.
No, he talked about all the characters, and here's where it was other interesting. He said fans of the ride want to see this. No one else wants to see a Botanicus movie. So I feel like he had made a good point for me of that, but let's see what the fans think. Fans out there, I gotta say, the songs did clinch it for me, because I don't remember what your movie is, Dan. I'm not trying to be mean. It was something about
I was gonna look like the Grinch in this round, no matter what I did.
Look, you did. Don't complain. You did great, but I'm just saying. Let's go to the fans. What do you got? Quickly, real quick.
Where do I even begin? Okay, so Mike's pitch sounded kind of like the substitute teacher Key and Peele sketch meets like an Adam Sandler movie, kind of.
Which one would you see?
It's Mike's. He put that song. That song.
All right,
though.
real quick around. Anybody want to see dance?
I would want to see Dan's because
Okay.
Mike's doesn't even sound like a Botanicus movie anymore. It just kind of sounds like it's just going off into this different kind of thing where it was supposed to be serious that you're throwing comedy and music in there, whereas Dan sounds like an adventure blockbuster.
only Dan said it was
you
fun,
said this is going to be completely serious, and then every other word that came out of your mouth was comedy.
What he says.
All right, Dan. Lon, what did the audience vote?
It's extraordinarily close once again.
Because you're giving him a 50-50 option.
It's the same. It actually
come on, Dan.
It actually is the exact same breakdown as the last one. 51% for one of the options, 49% for the other one. I'm just reloading to see if it reloaded. It is exactly the same result as the last
Really?
poll.
With a 1% to Mike?
51% to Mike, 49% to
did
Dan.
round one change at all? Let me know.
Let me go.
Just so I have a fan vote of people in the room who were here. Dizzle, you're voting, and Amar, you're voting for Mike's movie? Okay, so 1 for Dan and 3 for Mike.
Can I just jump in and say I thought as much as I enjoyed the songs, I think Dan was the clear victor in terms of the arguments, and I was really surprised to hear. I thought that was going to be everybody felt.
Yeah.
That.
Hey, look, that's what it is. I don't know. I
love the songs.
Well,
but
here's what's interesting. I mean, it's hard to debate a pitch round.
Yes.
It's a different thing. It's a creative choice. So there is some personal points. And my problem is, again, I'm going to stick with it because I'm going to give Mike the points. I don't know. Yes, there was a little. I agree with you. The tone was mixed. But then when he ended up showing the tone and he committed to it so seriously, it was sort of like The Happening for me. It was just sort of one of those things that's like, I find comedy in badness, whatever. And I still don't remember. I was listening, I took notes about the humanoids. I was confused what was happening. So Mike's and with the round here and the voting poll, Mike gets that point. There we go.
Round one, the vote is now 54% for Mike, 46% for Dan. So it's changing, but...
Okay, so we'll try and do a little earlier and see.
A little bit.
I'm also going to mix up the next poll. Next time it's going to be Dan.
Right.
It's going to be 1,
Yes.
and Mike will number
That's
2,
what I
so
was
be
about to
prepared.
say.
All right, so here we go. Round 3. Now, in these next 2 polls, we did try and pick a question that was more analytical for Dan and more creative for Mike. So you'll see that in the next 2 rounds, the producer's choice here. We picked something that felt more to Dan's strengths and then one that's more to Mike's strengths. So first up, round 3, best movie trilogy. And this time, I think we're back to you, Dan, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, very tough.
Let's hear who you're picking.
I'm
What
picking
trilogy?
Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Lord of the Rings, Dan. Mike, what are you picking?
Toy Story.
Toy Story. Okay. Great. Dan, go ahead.
I think when you're judging best trilogy, it's not just 3 great movies. I think that you're looking at 3 movies that tell both an overarching story and then movies that are
it's a trick
individually.
question.
Of course it is. Yeah.
I'm kidding. We're not doing any trick questions this show. Go ahead, Dan. I'm just joking. It's not trick questions.
Thank you.
Start over. I'm kidding. It's not a trick question. Go ahead, Dan.
All right, let me get back on track.
Start over. Start reset.
No, when you're talking about a trilogy, I think you're talking about both 3 good movies and 3 movies that tell a great story across all 3. I think that's why, for me, the Godfather trilogy was not in part of this discussion. While Godfather and Godfather 2 are great movies, I don't think Godfather 3 is a great movie. So that's why I picked Lord of the Rings, because this is a film trilogy that individually, each film is a satisfying experience. Each film tells its own story. Each film has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then together, they tell, amongst all three, a very compelling, epic story. So you can watch one at a time. You can watch them all together. The viewing experience is just as satisfying either way. Audiences love them. It wasn't that thing of the first movie comes out and you're like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to see what the other two were like before I can really judge this one. Every movie that came out, people loved as it came out. They weren't saying, I have to wait and see what the next one is. And I think that's why, for being able to interconnect all the stories as well as they did, but also make three compelling, satisfying, well-made movies on their own elements, that's what makes this the best movie trilogy for me. There's a lot more that I can talk about. And
Great, we'll come to it. Mike, Toy Story.
Oh, God, Dan, you're going to be so mad at me by the end of this round. Lord of the Rings is a little sleepy, first of all. These movies are a little sleepy. And as far as we're talking about earlier, like you don't remember what is what. I think Lord of the Rings don't. Look, those are good movies. I saw them, I like them. But we're talking about Toy Story. These are characters and situations and scenes and elements, even just iconography, like pop culturally, like stuff that resonates so much more. I mean, when you're thinking about the Toy Story movies versus Lord of the Rings, like I cannot remember like which giant CGI battle went in which movie. I remember. Thank you. We'll do that later. Like when we're talking about just characters, like I feel like Wallace. Look, I love Wallace Shawn, but Wallace Shawn's Rex is like more memorable than a lot of like whatever the 10th character in Lord of the Rings is. Like much more memorable, and you can know who he is as a character and as a person, as a little dinosaur than you do. Like Gollum, sure, like Gollum. I think like culturally, people know Gollum and a little of Gandalf, but like all the Toy Story characters are iconic. Like, even the new ones. Mr. Pricklepants has, like, 6 lines in the new Toy Story movie, but, like, he's great. Timothy Dalton's Mr. Pricklepants. Maybe that was a bad choice to say. Lots of Huggin' Bear. Does that help it? Okay. He's the strawberry. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I just think, these are a trilogy of movies that also, like, do something unique. Like, they're really sort of telling one boy's story, Andy, over the course of so many movies, and like each movie deals with like a totally different theme and blah blah blah. Anyway, these are better than the Lord of the Rings movies.
Ooh, okay.
I disagree wholeheartedly. I think Toy Story, those are 3 really good movies. I think that they don't. First of all, they're not even going to be a trilogy for very much longer. We're going to have a Toy Story 4, and now you're going to have 4 Toy Story movies and not 3 Toy Story movies.
I think though the first three are Andy's stories, so that is a trilogy of Toy Story movies. That is Andy's story. Now they have a female who's playing with them, and we're going to get it from a perspective of a female.
But then are we getting 2 more of the female?
We're going to have to see.
I think that they're just pumping out Toy Story movies. Like there was no real plan. They're just like, hey, Woody and Buzz, they're doing well. We're going to make 3 movies. Secondly, I don't. These movies have good moments. They have touching moments in them, but I feel like they kind of work on a structure, which is the toys are happy, they're in a home, they get lost or stolen, they learn a lesson, they go back home. And that's what happens in the first one, it's what happens in the second one, it's what happens in the third one. I think that Stinky Pete and Lotso Huggin' Bear are kind of the same villain. It's a guy, people used to play with me, and now I'm angry, and nobody gets to play with any of you. And I think that's kind of repeated a bit. I think that you have, funny characters and they're fun movies, but as a trilogy, I don't see how they stack up storytelling-wise to Lord of the Rings. I don't think that the Lord of the Rings movies are a little sleepy. If the Lord of the Rings movies were a little sleepy, then people wouldn't go and buy the version that's 3 hours longer and say, oh, I want to watch that. That's the version I want to watch too. Like, I love these movies when they were in theaters. I love them so much. I want to see the longer versions of them. If they were sleepy, I don't think, maybe you found them boring. I think that they are really interesting, really compelling. I think they have great characters. I think Boromir, who's only in the first movie, he's way more memorable to me. I know that Rex is a dinosaur and he goes, ah! Boromir is such a complex character. Those characters are so much more developed than the toys in Toy Story. They're cute, they're fun movies, but from a storytelling standpoint and just from a craft standpoint, I mean, those movies are just like handmade almost. I mean, they built these massive sets and interconnected and they shot them all at the same time. I don't see how it even compares as a trilogy to Lord of the Rings. Mike?
Well, I mean, first of all these movies have like similar things. Like there are so many like bunch of guys in a big field versus another bunch of guys in a big field. That happens a lot. Like you can break down both movies. There's a big fight in the second one too.
Yeah, they're not in the field though.
What are they in stones? Are they on stones?
I don't remember.
Okay,
I'm sorry you didn't pay attention to Lord of the Rings,
bunch
Mike.
of
That's
guys.
not my
It's
problem.
a bunch of guys. I've seen like the Toy Story movie. I honestly have seen Toy Story 3 like once, and I know so much more about it than I do these movies. But like simplifying Toy Story is like these movies are all about the same thing. It's not true. Like number 1 is about jealousy. Number 2 is like abandonment and searching for a place to belong. Number 3 has got overtones of like sexual frustration and becoming an adult, and ultimately like confronting your own death, which is like the heaviest scene I've ever seen in a movie. This is a kids movie. This is supposed to be a Disney product, but all the characters clutch each other's hands and are prepared to die. This is insane. This blew my mind in the movie theater. Like, how could they do this in a movie? Like, to just simplify these movies as like products and they're very similar. It's crazy. Like, yes, the Lord of the Rings are like do well, but like, look what you can. You know what Pizza Planet looks like. I know what the Pizza Planet logo looks like. That
I
is
know
the
what
thing.
Minas Tirith looks like.
Yeah, but you're one of the only people I feel like.
That is not. First of all, that's
Most
100%
people,
not true.
Let's poll people if they know Pizza Planet more than whatever the word you just said.
Minas Tirith.
Minas Tirith, okay? And as far as like it being innovative or like handcrafted sets, Toy Story 1 is a brilliant piece of filmmaking that starts everything for computer generated movies. This is the first one. It's talking about like how well crafted and acting like this stuff is just something that a computer shit out is crazy. Like that first movie is so innovative and it deserves so much credit. We just take it for granted now that this is even an art form, and these movies started it.
Well, okay, so we were talking innovation
Yes.
and difference. Okay, Toy Story was a different kind of animated kids movie. I will grant you that, but it was an animated kids movie. They've been making animated kids movies for years. They've been succeeding for decades. Animated kids movies have been succeeding. Lord of the Rings was an unfilmable book in a genre that if you attempt it was the box office poison. It was pegged as a disaster. Nobody thought it would work. Nobody thought it would be any good. The cast was, familiar faces, but it didn't have an A-list cast. This thing had everything going against it. It had a director, Peter Jackson, who never made anything even close to this scale. He had all these things working against it, and yet somehow, because they put this thing together so well, because they paid off the characters, they knew what parts of the book to change. How many times have you seen an adaptation of a book or anything as well known as Lord of the Rings that the fans of that thing are like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, they made an unfilmable book into a movie that even the fans of the book loved, which is so incredibly difficult. And again, each movie on its own, beginning, middle, end, tells a story in service to this bigger, more epic story. These movies got more successful as they went along. They found a bigger audience as they went along. They mainstreamed a genre that was bookended for nerds that nobody really cared about. Toy Stories, they're cute kids movies, but they've been making those for years. Lord of the Rings advanced that genre and really made it a force to be reckoned with at the box office, critically, commercially, in a way that no other movie has ever been able to do up to that point.
Well, you're selling Toy Story short by just calling it a kids movie. I mean, that's crazy. These movies go deep. These movies speak to things, and they appear simple. And also, and you're also selling it short that like they did animated kids. Well, they made movies before that. This is a different type of movie. If you ever look at those animatics and stuff, no one knew this was going to work. I mean, this is similar to like when you read about Walt Disney, like not knowing if like sound would work with animation, and everyone's mind was blown when it happened. Like if you look at those animatics and when they were putting this movie together, it's crazy. Like as far as innovation, or it's a monumental task to make it even work. This is Toy Story as well. And yeah, like these movies are good. Look, when I'm saying sleepy, it just means that these movies are very long, and I don't know where one starts and one ends. Like this is almost like 3 movies that are one long 12-hour movie. Toy Story has distinct chapters and tones and themes. And I believe that because of that, it's the better overall when you look at all 3 things separately.
And I think that
Final thoughts, go. We're gonna go. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's like one long movie. I think that's why this works as a trilogy. I think that the first Lord of the Rings movie, I think that Fellowship is about making the choice and fate and what rejecting this call and realizing that you have to be this hero. I think that 2 is about commitment and friendship, and then I think that 3 is just about, it's almost about family, and it's about this idea of, despite the fact that you're spread out all over the planet essentially, that you can succeed with the help of your friends, and that's the only thing that's going to get away from you. And it's this idea of this huge monolith that's essentially brought down by this group of people, a dozen people, and they bring down this massive thing that nobody thought that they could beat. So I think to say it's one long movie, that's not true. I think each movie addresses specific themes, and I don't think that they run together. I think that they all have their own thing to say in service of the larger story.
Final thoughts, Mike.
The third movie starts out with a scene, essentially a fantasy scene where all the characters are being like played with by Andy. To dismiss this is just sticks on my to dismiss the movies as childish. Like, I am Andy. We as nerd people are Andy. These are movies. This kid was the same age as I was, about like just roughly, like they played with the numbers, so I was a little older by the time 3 came out. But like, to see movies about how kids play and how the toys coming to life would reflect your adolescence is an incredibly powerful and incredibly moving thing. And that is why these movies resonate so much and end up resonating better, I think, than Lord of the Rings, which are good. Look, I'm poking fun at it. These are good movies. But Toy Story resonates with the culture, and it resonates with me more.
And I would argue that Lord of the Rings does the same.
Would you like one last line, Mike?
To infinity and beyond.
All right, now again, this time vote for 1 for Dan and Lord of the Rings, or go to Twitter at Screen Junkies and vote 2 for Mike Carlson and Toy Story. Okay, voting started. Please go vote and vote responsibly. Lon.
Wow, lots of trilogies. As happens every single time we argue about trilogies, people got into it in the comments about the Cornetto trilogy. Does the Cornetto trilogy count as a trilogy? Are those totally disconnected films? Took up a lot of the comments. Also, Back to the Future suggested a lot. Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy. Dark Knight, and then an interesting one that came up a lot, Captain America now. People are considering its own sort of 3-movie trilogy.
I think that's 3 movies, but I don't know if
Yes,
call it
that MCU feels like the franchise as opposed to that being a trilogy.
MCU is a trilogy.
Also, there was discussion about movies that have gone on to make more films. Can you just consider the first 3 a trilogy? So, like, would Indiana Jones have counted if we just said the first 3?
Debatable.
Right.
Debatable. They could have made that debate. They didn't.
That was what was happening in the comments. Also, Minas Tirith is the capital of Gondor. Everybody, come on, you know.
White City.
I did know that.
You know
Which one's?
you know Minas
White
Tirith.
City. Yeah, I did. But anyway,
Helm's
that has
Deep
nothing
is
to do
at
with
the end of
with
2.
what I think.
Yes.
All right, Mike, let's go to you. Based on the debates.
I think that, excuse me, Dan actually did bring up the point about it not being a true trilogy, that they're going to make more, and that, and I think there needs to be some, I don't know, Dan does a much better job of explaining why it's a trilogy, and why the story arc through all movies is really good, and each individual movie has its own themes, but in terms of taking it as a trilogy, I'm going with Dan, because I think that there's no real explanation as to why Toy Story is a trilogy other than there are just 3 of them.
Great. We'll go quickly to the fans as we get a little bit more voting. Go ahead. Let's go. Dakota, what do you think? Or sorry, whoever's Mike, sorry.
Well, I think Dan won ultimately. While Toy Story is a great franchise as well as Lord of the Rings, I also think Toy Story has an overall satisfying ending as a trilogy. I see Lord of the Rings bringing people together more, whereas Christmas time comes around, you hear more people go, let's watch Lord of the Rings, or let's watch, something else. I don't hear Toy Story that much. Me personally, I've seen Lord of the Rings trilogy every holiday. I hear a bunch of other people talking about it, and as well as the books, and I hear how Sauron's an impossible book to make. So, yeah.
All right, cool. Amar, what do you think? Quick.
Toy Story movies, they're like my favorite movies. I was very excited when Mike chose them as his argument, but I was very let down. They're not arguing well.
All right, so you're going Dan.
Yes, I am.
All right, Moody, Dizzle, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Dan killed that one. Lord of the Rings is known as one of the best trilogies for a reason, and he proved it. So,
Dizzle,
Dan.
you in agreement or?
Yeah, Dan, very ending, all 3 of them being separate arc. Boom.
Look, Lon, what does the votes poll say?
So Dan is option 1 this time, correct?
He's option yes.
Yes, 52% for Dan at option 1. Oh no, it just changed. 53% for option 1, Dan. 47% for option 2,
All right,
Mike.
that's pretty unanimous, and I don't disagree. I think, Mike, you also just started a little poorly. You blah, blah, blah a little bit in the beginning. You came around strong at the end, but Dan was definitely hitting the hardest throughout that whole round.
I really like Dan's argument about how Lord of the Rings has this huge ensemble of characters with a lot of depth and complexity. I thought that was a really good.
Yeah, and I did think you explained they're standalone, but then they tell the cohesive story. It was a good rate. There we go.
I did not have time to watch all 3 movies last night.
Fair enough. Round 4. Now, this is a more creative pitch. Dan, you had a little bit of an advantage because it's more analytical. Now, Mike, you get a little bit of advantage because this is another pitch question. You are a commercial actor. See you on TV all the time.
I am, yes.
Wonderful.
That is a
And
way I make
Netflix
some money.
movies and a lot of other
Look, I'm a man about town in Hollywood. I do a lot of different things. So yes,
famous guy. I'm honored to be sitting next to you. Well, in this question, you're going to go first. Pitch a movie based on a commercial. So you must pitch a commercial that we've heard of, and pitch us the movie version of that said commercial. Mike, let's hear it.
Okay, everyone familiar, hopefully, with the Tootsie Roll, the classic Tootsie Roll Pop commercial. Are we playing them? Are we allowed to legally?
We have it. There it is.
Okay, there's the picture. Okay. So the basic setup is this naked child goes and talks to a couple different animals, asks them. The child will not be naked in the movie just because of the MPAA. Yeah. I would like it to be naked.
Not like Jungle Book.
Yeah. Not like Jungle Book.
Okay.
He goes to different animals and asks how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll. At the end of the story, the owl takes it and he goes 1, 2, 3, and then he bites it like a dick, and then gives it back to him.
He was being a dick.
The owl was.
Yeah.
Make sure there's no misunderstanding in that what he said.
Right. The owl hands him back the stick, and then the kid is just confused, and that's the end of the commercial. And it's one of it's like probably the most famous commercial ever. So I'm taking that and I'm expanding on it. So look, we have a young boy at home. Let's think of like a Tom Holland type. He might be too expensive to get now. All right. He is having trouble at home. You know, the parents fighting, blah, 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 setup and classic setup. And he goes to sleep one night, and he is transported to Tootsie Land. And Tootsie Land is a magical place that is filled with all of the different candy that the Tootsie Roll Company makes. Ooh. So there are characters, anthropomorphic versions of the characters, and then there are lands based on the characters. So he meets a character first he's excited. He's candy everywhere he's eating. It's a little Willy Wonka style. Then he meets a character named Sugar Daddy. Okay, and Sugar Daddy looks like the candy Sugar Daddy. And he tells him, look, if you want to get out of here, you need to go find the answer to the question that has plagued our world for a long time. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? And he sets out on an epic quest not unlike the epic quest in the great movie Lord of the Rings, which is a fantastic movie, and I think is a template that we should look toward this movie, because these movies resonate.
Great trilogy.
The great trilogy of films. Probably, I would say even maybe the best. He goes to different lands. He goes to different places. He meets Mr. Cow in Charleston Chew Land. He meets Mr. Fox in Double Bubble Springs. They're attacked by the evil Razzles Candy. Okay, this is a fun adventure, and ultimately at the end we get to Mr. Owl, which is in the Andes Chocolate Mountains, and there are Thin Mints also, evil Thin Mint bad guys hanging around. And Mr. Owl does a very similar thing to the commercial. He asks Mr. Owl, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? He licks, bites, throws it away, and the kid is confused. And then he realizes what this whole thing has been about is a search for God. And essentially what has happened is he looked to God. He said, where are the answers? Why are we here? God licked the sucker 3 times, bit it, threw it away, and just went away. The answers we don't know, we'll never know. He learns an important lesson about life. He's transported back to his home life, and everything is fine.
Wow, deep. All right, Dan, let's hear more. Let's hear what commercial you picked.
I did. I picked I picked something that fascinates me. Something that I would actually go to a theater to learn a little bit more about, and I picked commercial mascots that are very confusing to me, and that I don't really understand why they exist, and that is the Charmin Bears. I don't know why bears are toilet paper mascots, but they look, they look cute, they look fun. So I figure let's build a movie around them. The Charmin Bears play themselves in this movie. This is a live action animation hybrid movie. The Charmin Bears are playing themselves. They're high on life. Look at them. They're popular.
We're going
cartoon.
like CG.
We could go CG.
Animated?
We could go animated. It depends on the budget. Hand animation's very expensive, so we'll see what kind of budget we can get for this. But we'll see. It's got to be mixed, as you'll see here in a second.
Okay, sorry.
But the Charmin Bears are playing themselves. They're high on life. They're cartoon mascots until they're replaced. They're replaced by these Charmin miniature horses, because what's cuter than bears? Horses, and they make just as much sense as bears, so why not just make Charmin miniature horses? So the bears are exiled, and they have to go live in the land of former mascots. Now, this is kind of similar to Mike in that we meet a cast of characters in the land of former mascots. I'm talking Grimace from McDonald's.
Whoa.
I'm talking Lil Penny from the Nike ads, the other 2 Cinnamon Toast Crunch chefs that disappeared, Max Headroom, so many former commercial people. And basically they're all out of work. This is kind of like a Wreck-It Ralph type situation where they're basically in a no man's land. So the Charmin Bears have to learn to literally actually shit in the woods, which is, again, this thing that bears do that they've never had to do. And until they uncover a plan by the Noid. Now, I don't know if you know the Noid, but the Noid was the Domino's mascot for many, many years. He was always up to no good. The Noid has decided that he is going to round up all of the current commercial mascots and send them to space so that he will be the only mascot and he will do all the advertising. He's disgruntled. So the Charmin Bears save the current day mascots. They team up with the former mascots that nobody wants. They rescue everybody. Everyone is happy, and they ignite this whole retro thing. So now all the old mascots, they're popular again because that's what's hip now. Is you take some from the 80s and the 90s, you rediscover them. Now they're cool. The Charmin Bears are back on top. Everybody's happy. It's a kids movie. It's fun. It's a quick 85, 90 minutes. You're gonna go in. You're gonna smile. You're gonna have a little bit of nostalgia, and you're gonna come out having had a fun adventure. And whether you're 30 or 10, there's going to be something for everybody. It's a family film.
All right, fight it out.
All right, I'd like to do a quick, a quick improvisation about what will happen at the McDonald Company when they get the call to license their IP to this movie. Hello? Oh, you'd like to use Grimace for a movie? Yeah. A movie about shit bears? The shit bear? You mean the shit bears from the commercials? No, thank you. We don't. We would. Grimace is too beloved of an IP, and we would not want him to be in a movie with shit bears. So sorry. Hang up. Never gonna happen, folks. This thing is. Look, this thing is crude. First of all, this is bizarre. By the way, he is right. This is bizarre.
Mine's bizarre.
This is bizarre. Okay, these are bears. First of all, did you see the picture? Can we put the picture back up where the young bear has just toilet paper on his butt?
Well, that is part of the
It's a toilet paper bear.
I know, it's crazy.
Part of
Like,
the commercial.
this is
They need the strong one, not the soft. There it is.
This
They need the
is
strong. It's the ultra strong one.
It's
that
the
break
ultra
away.
strong. That's
First
the whole
of all,
point of the
I
ad,
did a
Mike.
Who
little research.
uses ultra strong?
I
Don't you
did
want soft
First of all, I
always?
did
Well,
some
that's
research.
the great thing about Charmin is it's both soft and ultra strong.
I did some research, and the thing is, Dan just said that. Thank you for the segue. There was a lawsuit about how this Charmin is not as strong as it claims to be. Scraping bare bottom, P&G's toilet paper ads declared misleading. Okay, so you're gonna have a lot of controversy that surrounds this movie initially because maybe this toilet paper isn't as good as they say it is. That's at least what these people are alleging. And look, like mine is a very straightforward movie with candy, not shit. Like candy is better than shit. That's a math problem, folks.
All right, first of all, I'd like to say that Mike has not attacked the substance of my movie whatsoever. It's everything about lawsuits. I don't care. First of all, have you seen the billboards around town? There's a movie coming out that's literally got a smiling shit on it, 20 feet long and 12 feet wide. This is a new world that we're living in, Mike.
That doesn't make this better. That doesn't make it better.
Your standards are outdated, number one. You sound very out of touch with what families will go to nowadays.
We don't know that families are going to a shit movie.
Secondly, who cares? Okay, Grimace, like your whole argument is like, oh, McDonald's won't let you use Grimace. Fine, there's like 25,000. I use Snuggle. Fine, I'll put the Snuggle Bear in there if we can't use Grimace. That's
How
the
would
whole
the Snuggle
thing.
Bear work either? Let me do a quick improvisation when the Snuggle Bear finds out people are like, hello.
Let me talk about our movie.
You want to use Snuggle Bear and what, the shit bear? The shit bear movie? No, we can't do that.
Let me talk about your movie because just from a storytelling perspective, your movie is about a kid who goes to a very boring place and learns nothing and goes home.
Boring place.
People aren't gonna like your movie.
He learns about God. He learns about the nature of existence, and he goes to a place where there's candy. Every kid loves candy.
Yeah, kids love sugar daddies and whatever 40-year-old candy you just pitched in that ad. That commercial was old when I was a kid, and that was in 1989.
It has persevered. That commercial has persevered for a reason because the IP in that commercial have been resonating with kids of generations for years. The Charmin Bears, let's be honest. We're going to look back at this and go, there were shit bears on TV? I mean, people are going to be flabbergasted.
You're using the term shit bears. You're using your stodgy standards to deflect the fact that your movie isn't really about anything. People are going to go to this animated movie and feel hoodwinked. You get this message about God, and then the kid goes home, and he doesn't even get what he goes there for. Like, as a storyteller, that's just bad storytelling, and I'm going to be angry. I was angry when, when Suicide Squad didn't have a story. I don't want a movie that has no story that's like, oh, God, and you don't learn anything
there's
about
no story. He goes to different animals, and then he learns about the nature of existence. That is a lesson, like whether I'm being glib or not. That's a lesson.
Well, it's a boring lesson, and it's a depressing lesson, and it's not one that I want to go see, and it's not one that the families of America want to go see. I am pitching a fun, nostalgic romp. I'm sorry that it doesn't meet your standards, but it meets the standards of America. Shit is being advertised right now as family movies, and this will fly with today's family. Get with the times, Mike.
I'm going to do
a quick improvisation. I'm going to talk to a hypothetical child. Hey, buddy, there's 2 movies playing in the theater right now. One is about a kid who goes to a magical land of candy and eats candy, and he meets different kind of animals, and they talk and they have an adventure, and it's really exciting. Or there's a movie where the point of the characters is to go figure out how to take a big dump in the woods. Yeah, there's bears, but like the whole thing is like you're going to see like shit come out of their bear butts. Like
You're
that's going to be...
saying that, I'm not.
Well, look. If there's no shit coming out of a bear's butt, what's the payoff? What's the point of doing the Charmin Bear movie?
To be fair, I don't think he did say there would be shit coming out of the butt.
Not.
Yeah,
but how do we show? Oh, we're gonna just show it, and like the birds will flutter away out of the forest. We're gonna be suggestive here. We gotta show it, baby. If we're doing Charmin Bears, we gotta show it.
Suggestive double-layered kids movies are out there. The adults are gonna know what's going on. The adults will laugh.
The whole point of the movie is to have them figuring out how to take a dump in the woods.
That was one aspect of the movie, not the whole point of the movie.
All right.
Oh, the Noid is in there.
The Noid. All right. This time, vote number 1 for Mike Carlson and the Tootsie Roll Pop, leading to the no existence of a god or whatever. Exactly. And then Dan's Shit Bears, the Charmin Bears.
That is Mike's term, not mine.
By the way, that's a classic. I did a classic Trump thing there by branding the movie with a title.
Charmin Bears meeting all the other mixed up, washed up, and they save all the brands.
They do indeed.
Number 2 for Dan, 1 for Mike and Tootsie Roll Pop, 2 for Dan. Charmin Bells. Go vote at Screen Junkies on Twitter. Lon, what are they saying online?
Very fitting. Number 2 for Dan. It was so much fun to get to watch a debate coach write down candy is better than shit, and then have to like rethink about it when it was like that. Because Dan's emoji movie point was amazing. Like there's a billboard and
Mike was leading, and then that was just
that's a pretty devastating blow. There were a lot of other commercials people mentioned. Old Spice came up a ton. The Geico Gecko came up a bunch, and then I thought the funniest one. Sort of. Kendall Jenner solving the world's problems via Pepsi.
I would watch that.
I would watch that.
All right, Mike, what do you think based on those arguments?
The nostalgia issue, both sides get nostalgia.
Yep.
Neither side wins nostalgia. The story issue goes to Mike because I like the idea that the journey is the adventure itself and that there's not has to be an answer at the end. I don't know anything about the lesson or what's learned in Dan's movie. Also, the issue of IP is probably a relevant issue. Ostensibly, the Tootsie people would own everything that's in their movie. They don't have this IP problem. Dan's movie, hundreds of companies would be called, and I think that many of them would say no. So I would go with
Mike. Wow, he's going with Mike.
Conjecture, Your Honor.
Let's go to the fans real quick. Let's go around. Which movie would you guys want to see? I just want to curious. Raise your hands. Mike's Tootsie Roll Pop movie. Only Amar. Okay, and all 3 of you want to go to see the Charmin Bears movie?
I don't want to see either, actually.
You have to pick one.
You have to choose one. It's a movie.
Yeah. All right. So if you had to pick one, you're picking Dan's. All right, got it. So all right. Any quick thought? All right, good. What's the poll say, Lon?
Option 1 was. Can we say it one more time? People are having a little trouble remembering.
Mike was option 1.
Round to round. So option 1 is Mike.
And Dan was option number 2.
Right now, option 2 is leading only slightly. Dan's leading 51% to Mike Carlson's 49%.
This has been a tough show.
It's neck and neck, and they're really having a hard time with the votes.
Look, I think I actually like Mike's points there. They are valid, but there was just such a strength in. I thought Mike was crushing it, and then when Dan did that counter punch, he never really got back up. Mike got a little lost and trumped himself about, which I didn't know if it was very as fair. So and the fact that Dan was able to call him out for it, I do say I thought Dan defended himself better. I'm gonna give Dan that point as well. Dan's on the board with 3-1. All right, round 5.
Still anybody's game.
This is the most requested fan question. I'm excited for this. It's going to be an epic brawl. Let's see how this is. This came, so many fans, but Rematch from episode 17, best Spielberg movie, but really the matter of the fact is E.T. versus Jaws. We know you both are very passionate about these films. Mike, you just went very deep in the lore of E.T., so I assume you'll be picking E.T.
You're correct.
And Dan will be picking Jaws.
Yes, indeed.
Great. Okay, and then who was so I have Mike here first. Mike, so again, this is about E.T. versus Jaws. Which is the better film? Let's hear it out. Mike.
All right, I'm going to tell a quick anecdote.
Okay, before you do that.
Yes.
There was a fan poll that Mike and Dan do not know about.
Oh, great.
We asked the fans at home, would you like to see this as a regular fight? Or would you like to see this be a trick question? I don't know the answer.
I do.
I bet I do. I bet I know.
So, Lon, this is potentially a trick question. Look, so I wanted to see this straight, but look, I thought in order that the fans really seem to want it there, but we put it out fairly. Do you want to see this in an epic fair fight, or do you want the trick question? Lon, what were the results?
By 66% want to see a trick question. They want
So,
to see
this
him
is now a
flip.
trick question.
Okay. I thought this was going to happen.
I did too.
I mean, if you were any player of this game.
I have no notes for Jaws versus E.T. on my paper because I suspected this might happen.
I mean, come on. So to clear Mike in, because he doesn't watch the show, they must now fight for the other film that they're not as passionate about. But you must sell it like you are. Okay? And look, this is not that hard because you both pick pretty great films.
Sure.
So, but you're going to have to go against and tell me why the other one is the better film. That means, Mike, you'll be defending Jaws. And Dan, you'll be defending E.T. All right. Mike, you're first.
All right.
You got to really go off book. I love this. It's really about the debate off the cuff. Go ahead.
Off the cuff debate. All right. Jaws does a lot with a little. This is a movie that is about, fighting a shark. It's about, a horrible thing that's happening on Amity Island. But really what this movie is about is three dudes hanging out. And I say that in a flippant way, but that is what it is. This is a hangout movie. This is a movie that digs into three characters better than any movie ever, which is why this thing still lasts to this day. I mean, the shark and that stuff is all very iconic, but we're dealing with a movie that makes you know these three men. We know their relationships. It's almost like you're hanging out. It's like one of the great hangout films, really, of all time. These are three fully realized characters. In a situation, they're in close quarters where they get to the bottom. I mean, the scene where they're showing the scars. I mean, that's something that everyone quotes. Everyone knows that scene, whether you've seen it once, whether you've seen it 10 times. On top of all of this, then you've got just an incredibly well-made, well-executed movie about trying to kill a giant shark, which is just literally icing on the cake of an already amazing movie about these amazing characters. Jaws is the best Steven Spielberg movie, and it is the one that I think people remember the most moments from.
Dan, E.T.
I think that Jaws is extremely impressive for Steven Spielberg's first movie. I think it's fairly well publicized that Steven Spielberg didn't know what the hell he was doing when he made Jaws. He didn't get to make the film that he wanted, and I think that the film suffers because of that. I don't think it's executed to its fullest. He's still doing his homage. He's still doing his kind of film school tricks. He's using the Alfred Hitchcock camera angles. He's kind of taking from that 70s verite style of, naturalism. I can see the filmmaker that Steven Spielberg is going to be when I watch Jaws, but I also see the filmmakers that Steven Spielberg was borrowing from in that movie. E.T., almost a decade later, about 7 years later, he's come into his own, and I think this is a movie that very easily could have strayed into just unbelievably sappy territory. And you take this puppet. I mean, it's what E.T. is. It's a puppet, and through the story is an amazingly well-written script by Melissa Matheson, and I think that what he did was he took this kind of this concept of boy and his dog type story that could have just been a retread, and just through the way that he shot it, with the John Williams score, the way that he cast Elliot, Henry Thomas, one of the best child performances in any movie ever. I think in Jaws you have three great proven actors. In this one you have a lot of unknowns that deliver amazing performances, and I think that this is kind of the most pure Spielberg because he shoots this film and you see this film through a child's eyes. A lot of it is shot from the perspective, from the height of a child. So much of it is just a pure uncut Spielberg that it's kind of his signature film. That you see, this is how Steven Spielberg sees the world. It's a hopeful place. It's a place where a friend will come down from outer space and befriend you. And even though the government's going to try to get you, he revives things. He brings life. I think that Jaws is a really impressive movie. But I don't really see it as much of a Spielberg movie as E.T. is. I think E.T. is really him using every tool at his disposal to just craft an incredibly touching film that still, I disagree that Going Across the Moon is just as iconic as the fin in the water. I think that these are both movies that are held in regard. I don't think that Jaws has the advantage there.
Okay, when you're talking about like this Jaws famously, like there are they had problems on the set. The shark not working. If you've ever seen the Universal Studios tour, they play it every time, and you're like, the shark's not working. I mean, it's a triumph coming out of chaos. Like, I don't think you can knock it for whatever some problems. I think that in spite of all this, it deserves to be heralded more because of all the problems that were going on set, and because this is Steven Spielberg's first thing. I think that you need to it's incredible that he made this and really stands up still as the best of his movies. And we're talking about a puppet. Not a cute puppet is one thing, but to make a giant, essentially puppet, robot, whatever you want to call it, still make it menacing, still make it look like it's scary, be able to take, because the technology was limited at that time. We're talking about a big robot a big robot shark that sunk to the bottom of the ocean. To be able to take that and still make it and seem sinister and pop out of the water when the famous scene where Roy Scheider is on the boat and he sticks his head, that's crazy. That's an incredible triumph to make something that big, a practical effect, to actually make people believe it, to actually make people. This is a movie that people were scared to go in the water. That's literally people around that time. There was reports of beaches. People were not going. They were so afraid of what was going on. That is how much this movie resonated, and it's still how much this movie resonates.
If you want to go puppet for puppet, we'll go puppet for puppet.
Let's bring it on, baby.
I think that Jaws, the more you see of it, the faker it looks. I actually think that shot where it comes up out of the water the first time, I think it looks very fake. It kind of comes up and does this and goes back.
E.T. is clearly like a little person hobbling up to the alien ship.
No, E.T. has personality. The way that they designed E.T., E.T. was so good that they went back and tried to modernize E.T. and replace it with CGI, and people said, I don't like that. The puppet was better. That looked better. That looked more real. That looked more realistic. That looked more authentic. I think that Jaws is, the less you see of Jaws, the more scary it is. And the more you see of it, the less scary it is, because they just didn't have the technology to do Jaws as realistically as they could have. I think, again, with E.T., you imbue the shark it's easy to prey on people's terror of the unknown, because when people were afraid to go in the water, that's what Steven Spielberg is preying on in that movie. It's the unknown, the beast lurking under you in the ocean. That is a very primal terror, and it's very easy to exploit. I think it's far more difficult to touch people in a genuine way without coming off as sappy, without seeming overly sentimental, and that's what E.T. was a phenomenon, and it was on a scale because it touched people, and I think that's much more difficult to do than say there's a boogeyman under your bed and you should be scared. I think E.T. is a much more delicate balancing act than just, hey, be scared of this weird thing that's under the water.
As far as here's the thing, it's look, E.T. Look, believe it or not, I like E.T. Okay, but this is a movie that I think when you're looking at it as a whole, is E.T., you remember obviously the moments, the finger, you remember the thing. I think that the in-between parts in Jaws are the stuff that you remember that make you love this movie more. I think there's a lot of stuff in E.T. that are the in-between stuff, some of the scary government stuff that are a lot less watchable when you go back and you go, oh my God, this is really terrifying. And yes, it makes a point, but it is not something that sits with you. I think that, E.T., the score and everything, you remember that stuff. But as far as Jaws, I think that it almost, the shark being there almost doesn't matter. It just does such a good job of fleshing people out and showing you relationships. The kid is great in E.T. and the kid's Drew Barrymore, penis breath, all that stuff is good. But unfortunately, the kids aren't fleshed out characters. They remind you, they're more sort of analogs for yourself as a child. I think these are going to see Jaws. You're seeing three characters that you'll find yourself in pieces of each of them, but they're full 3D realized characters.
Well, as was brought up in the earlier discussion, I think that finding analogs of yourself as a child can be you found that with Toy Story. I think that's a very meaningful thing for a lot of viewers. And I think that, the kids, I think, do have their own personality. I think that Elliot in particular is a very well-drawn character, this kind of need for an attachment that he's missing from his absent father. They don't have to spell that storyline out. Dee Wallace is great as Elliot's mom. She doesn't get a lot of screen time, but you know who that character is. The worry when she's waiting for them to come home, the concern that she shows for their kids. I wouldn't discount them just because they're kids. I think each of those kids does have their own unique character, and I love the characters in Jaws. I think that they are great, but there is a certain amount of time where you're waiting for the shark to show up. There's a certain amount of time
that's
where you're
the best
like,
time
okay,
in the movie. I would argue that's almost the best time in the movie, and that is hard to do in a movie that is about a shark, is to make the best times in the movie the three people talking and sitting and making you feel the mood, as you were saying in Rear Window, the mood. I remember you can watching that movie. You're on the boat with them. You're like you feel a little drunk. You feel you're giggling with everyone. Like that's the stuff. That's the good stuff, baby.
But I think it's easy to put three great actors in a room and put a camera on them and just shoot them acting well. And I think that the balancing act with E.T. as far as the human characters and also this, again, like Jaws was an effect, but it was used here and there. E.T. is an effect that if it doesn't work, the whole movie collapses. And the fact that Spielberg was able to, okay, I'm going to do the cinematic elements with the humans, I'm going to do the technical elements with the special effects, with E.T., with the puppetry, with the character, and to meld those so perfectly into a movie that turned out so well. I think that Jaws is like, it's a very distinct difference. It's like, oh, this is the shark part and this is the human part. I think that E.T. is one kind of great masterpiece painting all melded into one, and Jaws has good parts, but I think the whole on E.T. is better.
You're getting E.T. though, and E.T. like obviously whoever crafted E.T. did a good job, but that's a lot easier to pull off. I mean, making just a little, it's essentially a suit. It is making a cool suit that like has big eyes and is cute. Like that is a lot easier to do and it makes somebody much more sympathetic. I mean, it's like making a character. There is, of course, you can make a bad character, but it's taking something and it's a lot easier than making a giant shark and making a boat movie.
I disagree. A shark. Look up what a shark looks like in a book and mold a giant shark. That's how they made the shark in Jaws. E.T. was like, how do we make this thing like E.T. is like this far away from looking disgusting.
He does look disgusting.
But no, he's adorable. But
he's
still
adorable,
an
but
alien.
he's disgusting.
He's not disgusting. He's still an alien. I disagree completely. Like E.T. it's a far more difficult design to get right than it's a big shark. It's this picture but big. I'm sure that's probably what he told him. Make that for me but big. And sharks are in the water. You know what a shark looks like. You know what a shark does. E.T. is a character. He's not just an effect. He's a character. The shark isn't a character. The shark is, as they famously called it, he's the MacGuffin of the movie. E.T. is a critical character in the movie.
But you take a cute puppet and you put a wig on him versus you took like a 500-pound piece of metal and dump it in the water and make people believe it.
But it's a shark. People know that sharks are in the water and they know what a shark looks like in the water.
Right. I'm just saying that if we're talking about doing something that was extraordinary for the time, Jaws is a little bit, in my mind, tougher to do.
All right, they're both good puppets.
Yeah.
Let's move on to final thoughts.
I would love to
here.
just battle puppet versus puppet.
Puppet versus puppet.
Yeah.
Both good,
Puppet to puppet.
complicated puppets. All right, final thoughts here. Why, again, tell me here, we're going to you first, Mike. Why is Jaws the better film than E.T.?
Jaws, from all the elements and all of the scenes, and we didn't even talk about score. Like Jaws, Donna. I mean, that I think is probably the most famous film score of all time, and I think that you have to give a lot of credit to the movie for that. E.T. I think people know as well, but like Jaws, like people do that all the time, and it's because of the movie. It's because of how much that movie resonates. E.T. is a great movie, but I think that ultimately people remember just the cuteness of the puppet and these big moments in it versus the whole thing. I think Jaws, when you're thinking about it, the whole journey is just as important with Jaws, more so than E.T.
And I think that E.T. is a far more well-rounded movie. I think that Jaws is a technically impressive movie that has some really good scenes because you had a great cast of actors. I think what Steven Spielberg did with E.T. is paint a much more complete picture of this family, which is in crisis. And again, he conveys this very effectively without having to go into a big family dramatic element that brings in this Martian. And again, I think the most impressive thing is like it's such a played out story, a boy and his dog. I mean, they've been making that since Old Yeller. and to make it so fresh and to balance deftly. I mean, yeah, I'm not score for score. I would put E.T. against Jaws any day of the week. They both had cultural relevance, so I think that's a watch too. Really, what it comes down to me is what is Steven Spielberg better? What shows me his craftsmanship more to me, Jaws or E.T.? And for me, E.T., just through the sheer range of what he was able to do, and again, to tell this child story through the eyes of a child and to put the audience in that same mindset and touch them in a way is much harder than scaring them. And that's what Jaws does. And I think that E.T. has a much more difficult job to do. I think it does it more effectively. And I think that it's a classic that's touched generations.
Whew, first of all, I love that we just twisted you and you both took the film you love and argued against it. Bravo! Very impressive there. You guys killed it. All right. Coming down to this, as Mike has his thoughts, Lon, what are they saying online?
Social media reacted exactly as you just did. At first, people were not loving the trick question. They wanted to hear these guys argue for the movie they were passionate about, but both fighters really won everybody over. Lots of people commenting about they can't believe that these weren't the arguments that they had actually prepared. That they actually had to just jump into this because it was so polished. I do have one fact check. Spielberg's first film, if you count TV movie Duel, if you count feature Sugarland Express, and there was a lot of disagreement online about whether you would consider E.T. cute or not. And then one of our 8-year-old fans tweeted through their mom, Jaws would eat E.T. So, something to consider.
Perhaps factually
true. Something to consider, something to think about.
All right, fans, I'm going to come to you in a second, but let's go to Mike. Based on those arguments, tell me what happened.
Not based on the arguments. Someone could have brought up Neil Diamond's song Heartlight. That had a huge cultural significance.
How could I forget Heartlight? Yeah.
That's a good point.
So the question for me is, what's the better Spielberg movie? I think that Dan carries us through the issue of taking unknown child stars, seeing it through the child's eyes. That to me is more quintessential Spielberg, and I think that doesn't really get answered very well by Mike. Everything from technical, story, the times between the action, those to me all seem pretty washed, but what is a more quintessential Spielberg? I'm going with Dan and E.T. because of the child's eyes and the unknown actors.
All right, and I didn't give the full poll, did I, Lon?
No.
Let's go number 1 for Dan and E.T., and number 2 for Mike and Jaws.
Got it.
So sorry if you've been voting, or have they already voted? What's the score before I said that?
There is no
great.
tweet yet.
Then we would have known it was bullshit.
Right.
51-49.
We're waiting for you.
Sorry. So I said 1 for Dan, 2 for Mike.
Vote
Mike and Jaws.
1 for Dan
and
Merle
E.T. And 2 for Mike and Jaws. Thank you for bearing with us. If you're watching this late, we want to make sure this voting poll matters. All right, let's go to the couch. Who's got the mic?
Me.
Dakota, go ahead.
Okay, I would say Mike wins because not only is Jaws more of a nostalgia than E.T., it was the first movie I was shown when I was a kid, and I used to work at Universal, and it was the most asked about ride that's not there, and it was more voted by employees that it was their favorite movie than E.T. when talked about. So I would have to go with that over Dan.
All right, well, you put some personal preferences in there based on the arguments, but good noted. Okay.
I think they both did phenomenal, but Dan really had me at the end with the closing and how he talked about Spielberg and his cinematic and just everything he said was just spot on. It was perfect. So I go for Dan.
Okay. Amar, Dizzle, you want to add, or are you good? Let's give some time for the vote.
Beautiful arguments, but I will go with Dan.
Dizzle?
Dan, because what he said, how he was borrowing, but for E.T. he wasn't borrowing and being not too sappy.
All right, Lon, probably not enough time. What are they?
No, I think we need a little bit more time. Yeah.
Here's where I'm thinking, and maybe that'll if they overrule me, maybe we'll see. But I think I gotta say I heard a little bit more from Dan. It just became clear. You just gave me a little bit more about the Spielbergness, the reasons why, technically. I was looking for a specific point here that I'm trying to. Oh, it was about it's easier to scare than to just be cute and go those points to me were hit really hard, and I never really heard you take those down, Mike, because you could have said, well, it's emotional porn, easy nostalgia to sort of you take advantage of.
That's what I was going to say.
And I didn't hear that back, and so that was the one that sort of stayed in my interest. Like, all right, that's kind of fair. You're scaring them, but you're not doing. But I didn't. I think you could have knocked E.T. down a little bit for being easy to exploit there.
Problem is I don't don't believe that.
Well, fair enough. But that, so I was leaning towards Dan, but let's see. I got to just see for time's sake.
They're not going to be helpful. It's literally 50-50. Option 1 and 2. I'm not lying. It's
all right. Here's
right
what we'll
down
do.
the middle.
Here's what we'll do. Let's go to the speed round. I'm going to dock that potentially to Dan. It's probably going to be a Dan point, but let's just see what that says.
It just went 51-49 for Dan.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm calling it. Dan gets the point. 4-1. Wow, Mike. You're going to need to earn this in the speed round. All right.
Stranger things have happened in the speed round.
Yes, for
Is
sure.
it the same speed round? Or are we doing
same
5 questions?
Same 5 questions. You still have a shot here, Mike. All right, great. Let's get to the speed round. Before I do that, though, I want to say these questions are awesome, and they came from a lot of you, so we want to need more. So go to @ScreenJunkies on Twitter right now. There will be a pinned tweet asking for questions for our celebrity movie fight happening at Screen Junkies Central next week. I'm so happy to finally announce, yes, that's right, you've wanted him back forever, Mr. Elijah Wood, coming back to movie fights to take on Mr. Kevin Smith. Oh man, that's going to be insanely epic. You are not going to miss this fight. It's happening at Screen Junkies Central, so if you got your tickets, get excited. You'll be seeing it among some 3 other amazing shows we're putting together for you. And then yes, we will put them on YouTube later. But get excited. I'm so happy to have Elijah back fighting Mr. Kevin Smith, and maybe a surprise there. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun, but that's happening. But we need your questions, so go to Twitter Screen Junkies now for the pinned tweet and start suggesting your questions for that round of Elijah versus Kevin. All right. Speed round. You guys know how this works, right? Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to have 5 more questions to do this and get this going. But before I do that, I know we're late, but I want to do this because I want to take a moment to thank a fan. Cue the music down for a little bit. I was reached out. You guys don't know I'm doing this, but I want to do this. I was reached out by a fan. I got do you have that tweet I got from Joe Leatherman? I want to do a little tribute here because I didn't know this happened, but I got a tweet from this guy, Joe. He said, I apologize. I have a story to tell you. It's lengthy, but I'd appreciate if you'd hear about it. One of my best friends, Mr. Cinema OSP, was an outstanding fan of movie fights and everything Screen Junkies. He's the only reason I'm a huge movie fan. Austin passed away recently. The last conversation I had with him was about doing fan fights video because we love you guys. He actually submitted for fan fights. He's the kindest, most passionate human I've ever known, and he's loved filmmaking. He was so intelligent. He was, he and I both did submissions. His was better. I plan to start a podcast in his name, and I just wanted to thank you guys. I miss him so much, and thank you for listening. You always kicking ass. Love you guys, and I admire Movie Fight Stage 1. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this really touched me, and I went back and I looked up Austin, and this guy seems like the nicest, most passionate, awesome movie lover I've seen, and I'm so sad. He had been tweeting me movie fight questions for the Evers. He worked at Walmart at the bargain bin, he was a filmmaker from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Austin. I wanted to do this in honor of our championship fight. I wanted to tribute to you, in honor of you, as a celebration for thank you for being a fan. I'm gone too soon, and I'm so sorry, but in honor of that, as a hardcore Screen Junkie, I gotta honor this guy, Austin. I'm so in love with this guy. I wanted him to be able to Austin, the first bargain bin pick here in honor of Austin Gray. Number 1, you're getting a true honor bargain bin that's legit from a serious fan. And here's how we're gonna do this. Here we go. It comes in from Austin from his Twitter from a while back. Here it is. You're gonna name the one you want.
Scooby-Doo.
I heard Mike. Anybody else? Yeah. Mike, you're going to get Scooby-Doo, and then Dan, you're going to get Master of Disguise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. Thank you,
Best
Austin.
of the
This was
Walmart
great.
bargain bin, yeah.
All right, there we go. You know how this works? Now, Mike doesn't know how this works. They'll have 20 seconds each, and then they'll have 10-second rebuttals, and it's timed. You ready, Lon? Time begins when you begin speaking, Mike.
I'm all set.
Master of Disguise ruined Dana Carvey's career. It's crazy. He could have been a movie star. He's one of the most talented guys ever. Like, watching that movie, you just get mad and going how bad this is and how much damage it did. Scooby-Doo at least has some laughs, some IP that we like. James Gunn wrote the screenplay. Like, you're at least like, this isn't the greatest thing, but like, okay, Scooby goes, like, okay, I remember that. That's fine. Master of Disguise is so actively bad when you're watching it.
All right, Dan, you have 20 seconds. Time begins when you begin speaking.
Scooby-Doo I've seen Scooby-Doo 800 times, and I've seen it better in the cartoon series. That was a pale imitation of the cartoon, which I like way better. Master of Disguise is something new. It's something different. I love Dana Carvey. I like to see the different sides of Dana Carvey. He does so many different characters in that movie, so many different impressions. I think he's hilarious. If you didn't like the movie, that's fine. He still has a great career, by the way. He's doing stand-up. You hear him all the time. It's not like this killed his career.
Mike.
He does like corporate gigs and like for like rich people. He doesn't have a great career. Like, this is the movie that did it. Scooby-Doo, yeah, we've seen it a million times because people like it. It's an enjoyable experience. Master of Disguise, like all everyone remembers is like the turtle.
10 seconds, Dan.
Nobody's favorite Shaggy is Matthew Lillard. I will watch the Scooby-Doo cartoon, and I will watch a comedian that I like, Dana Carvey. The movie may not be great, but he's great in it, and I like him, and I think he's funny, and that's the one I want to watch. I want to watch something fresh.
Casey Kasem, of course, is our Shaggy.
All right, discredit that last point, Mike.
That has nothing to do with. That has nothing to do with the
All
arguments.
right, we'll try and get the fan votes. No, we're just gonna use the fans in the room. Sorry, guys, we're running late. Mike, what do you think based on that argument?
I'm going with Master of Disguise because Scooby got ruined by the movie.
Interesting. I was going the other way, but let's hear what the fans think.
Surprisingly, I actually go with Master of Disguise. He sold me on it.
Mike sold me.
Master Disguise over Scooby-Doo any day.
Based on the arguments, guys.
Based on the arguments, I go with Dan.
Wow. All right. Interesting. And then Mike went there. Lon, let's get you involved. Here, can I say my piece and then you're going to say yours?
Sure.
I heard he did end his career. That's true. Like he really hasn't made anything since. He did a stand-up special. It's true, but the movies stopped happening. So that was a very noted point for me because I was a big Dana Carvey fan, and it's not funny. And I applaud you for trying because you said it was, but that's taste, but whatever. But then you dropped the James Gunn thing. It's kind of interesting to look back and watch because of that. It's interesting. So I did get more, and then it just felt new and different is not Master in Disguise. I just felt like you were reaching for me. But Lon, I know you were. I know you practically were.
I did not admit that. Did I sit here and say that?
No, you're not for the points. But Lon, go ahead.
It was a little tough, but I think I'm leaning towards Mike as well. The it ruined Dana Carvey point I thought was pretty solid. I'm like, yeah, like Scooby-Doo has been made a bunch of times, but it's because audiences enjoy it. It's venerable.
Yeah, I gotta go there too. So if Lon's helping me overrule that, it was close in the fan game. I'm giving Mike that point. I think that was good there. All right, number 2. Guys, this comes from Ryan Porter Wilson on Twitter. What movie character could win the Movie Fights Championship?
Randy from Scream.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's character from Last Action Hero.
Wow.
Sure.
Okay. Last Action Hero Arnold and Randy from Scream. Dan, you're first because you went first. 20 seconds when you begin speaking.
Randy from Scream should have been on this show. If this movie hadn't been made 20 years ago, I would have thought it was based on one of us. He knows every genre. He knows action. He knows horror. He screams and yells about the rules of horror movies. That's exactly what we do on this show, about the violation of the rules. Like, he was made to compete on movie fights. He knows his stuff. He knows the genres. He's got the passion, and that's what it takes to win the Movie Fights Championship.
Mike.
He's a famous actor. I've lost to so many famous actors on this show, and it's not a coincidence. He'll come in here. You guys want him to come back. He's going to get a little bit of a psychological edge, and he's going to win. He's a big star. You're going to go, this is great. This guy is here. I can't believe it. And he's going to I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be sweating, and he didn't.
Can I ask for a clarification? Is when he says Arnold Schwarzenegger in Last Action Hero, does he mean his character in Last Action Hero,
yes, who was an action?
or himself?
He is an actor. I think Mike was picking both. He is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
But he's not playing.
He's
not
like
saying,
McBain in the movie.
He means the police officer.
Yeah.
Last Action Hero.
To Dan's point, Arnold Schwarzenegger, we're only seeing the character that he plays. We're not seeing the actor who portrays that character. So it is a little.
I just want to know for my counter argument.
Yes, he is playing a famous actor from the world of Last Action Hero.
Got it.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes. He's playing the famous actor cop. I forget what the name is.
The guy who plays the cop who's in all the movies.
Yes.
Okay. I'm still really confused.
Because the movie's a little confusing.
Right.
I think it's a
the
line
character of the police officer, and then he plays himself in the movie.
Yeah, and he comes out of the screen in real life.
So
are you going with the one in the movie or the one that jumps out in real life? They're all the same.
They're all the same,
yeah,
right?
I think it's both. It's a little blurred.
Okay, well,
go ahead, use it, Dan.
I'm very confused, but here's the thing. Last Action Hero is in a different universe, and so if you asked the Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting here, what's the best Sylvester Stallone movie, he'd say Terminator 2. Guess what? He's disqualified, and I don't care how famous you are, he has alternate history knowledge.
All right, 10 seconds, Mike.
He would get a publicist, and they would tell him, what his famous Marvel movie. They'd be like, Iron Man 2 is my favorite Marvel movie, and he would be like, ding, I feel like he wins. I mean, that was, we would have, you guys also want him to come back. Why would you make him lose?
Oh man, that was all right. To help Mike there, that celebrities do tend to come on the show and always seem to win. So that was an interesting tactic. But Dan did make a good point. It was a little confusing as to which character was.
Right.
But
So
go ahead, Mike.
Did I get a rebuttal?
Did he get his rebuttal? He did, didn't he?
Did I get my 10 seconds?
I thought you both
Did I?
did.
You
Yeah,
got both.
did.
No, because I was asking
you
about
went twice.
No, that
Yeah, you got your 20s and then you just did
You
your
both
10s.
got your 20s and then you clarified.
Because you were arguing about your rebuttal.
Okay.
Right, 'cause
The
you
whole
wanted
thing
to-
with coming through the screen disoriented us.
Yeah, I got
You told me about Randy.
I got totally
because
confused about.
you sold me on Randy from
yeah,
Screen
I
got
Junkies and
totally
your worst
confused
friend.
about what Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah,
was
and then you
talking about.
spent your 10 on Arnold. Go
Okay.
ahead, Mike.
I'm voting for Randy because if I'm the debate judge, I'm going to not be swayed by the actor famousness.
They're interesting, Lon.
Yeah, the Arnold Schwarzenegger Last Action Hero thing really threw me off. I tend to agree with Dan that character would be confused by movie fights, so I'm going with Dan.
Quick vote, hand vote, because we're in a time crunch here. Vote for Mike and raise your hand. Okay, Dan gets the point. All right, so does he win?
That game?
No, he needs you need the next 3 to tie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
This is a rematch from episode 11.
So if Dan does win this, then that's
He
it.
wins.
Okay,
Then that's it,
got
yeah.
Rematch from episode 11, where you two first faced off. Oh wow! Back in January, I think, of
Yes.
of 2015.
Correct.
Wow.
All right, let's settle it once and for all. Best Liam Neeson movie.
Schindler's List.
I'm remembering what I said, and I'm wondering if I should do it. This one, as I recall, got tricky because there's a whole...
you gotta give me a movie. And you are correct, sir.
Batman Begins.
Ooh. All right. He did not go... Well, we'll see what happens. All right, Dan, time begins when you begin speaking.
I'm not going to get into the semantics of it. I will say that Schindler's List is one of the best movies ever made, one of the best movies of the 20th century or any century. Batman Begins is a really good Batman movie. The Dark Knight is a better Batman movie. And even if you're going to go Neeson for Neeson, Neeson's in the first 15 minutes of Batman Begins, and in the last 10, he's playing a pretty generic comic book villain. His performance in Schindler's List is brilliant, one of the great insights into a damaged psyche of any character.
All right.
What movie do I want to watch right now? Batman Begins, for sure. Like, there's no question. That movie is brilliant. It's amazing. But like, as far as like, what's a better movie? I'm going this movie because it's much more watchable. It's got Neeson. He is great. You're understating. Like, he is very cool. He's very evil. He really embodies Ra's al Ghul and his whole plot. It starts off a franchise that is like the biggest superhero franchise in the world. That's an incredible movie.
10 seconds.
The question, getting into semantics, the question wasn't what movie do you want to watch right now. It was best Liam Neeson movie, and Schindler's List is hands down a better movie than Batman Begins. Batman Begins is a good superhero movie. Schindler's List is a powerful, brilliant film.
10 seconds, Mike, when you speak.
Just trying to figure out how I'm going down. I'm just trying to figure it out. What is the best way for me to lose this? Is it to say something crazy?
Don't say that. It's never over, man.
Is it to say something shocking? Like, would I be wild man here, or do I just sort of go on with it?
All right, 5 seconds. You gotta go.
Batman Begins is a more important film than Schindler's List. It deals with a fictional place, yes, Gotham City, but I think that Batman stopping the gas. Oh my God, I said something crazy.
I think that's all the time we have. Lon and Mike, what do we think there?
Dan.
I think Dan got
Yeah,
that
fans, anyone voting for Mike?
I'm voting for Mike. I love it. He went for it. Most importantly, keep going for it. That was beautiful.
There you go. You got one from Dizzle, but Dan gets the point. Dan Merle retains the belt. This is crazy. No one can take it away.
What about San Martino?
Mike Carlson, though. My God, round of applause. I mean, you started this so strong. That was amazing. I have to give you major props. You really brought it. But man, you gotta admit, this guy is good. This is a hard one thing to do, and I applaud you for doing it, Mike. Wow, what do you want to plug?
I would plug my personal Twitter, Fat Carlson, PhatCarlson. Also, if you would be nice, I am starting a podcast with some friends of mine, and we're going to launch in like a week or two. But if you want to go to the Twitter, it's at Podcast The Ride.
Ooh, yes.
It is
I'm excited
about
for that.
theme
Heard about
parks.
this. Yes.
It's so at Podcast The Ride. Go follow that, and you will get updated on when we're coming out, which should be soon, any day now. We've already recorded the first episode, and I'll tell you this. It's about E.T.
Oh, that's very smart of you.
Very smart. Marketing genius.
Dan Merle. Bravo,
Yeah.
Dan
Oh, my
Merle.
Stop the show!
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Spencer Gilbert, we need to clarify here.
I have this thing.
You have earned the showstopper from the
I
from
get
our
to do the thing again.
from our last fighter standing. Mike, hang out.
You can hang or
hang out.
whatever. It's cool.
But let's have him take the chair.
That is
just
a no-nonsense sword. Oh, my God.
It's a replica.
Just to clarify for those who are confused, this is a shocker. Spencer Gilbert did earn the. I hope I know the code, Max. I hope you told me the. Okay.
He won Last Fighter Standing.
1, 2, 3.
He won
4.
Last Fighter Standing, and by winning the showstopper, he is allowed to challenge whoever wields the belt at any time the champion is live and on a show, which this counts.
How long has this episode been going?
It's
man?
way too long.
Let's make it longer.
Spencer is activating the showstopper. Dan, you understand what this means?
I do. I got to do the whole thing. I was gonna put it that I'd circle puppet for puppet on this piece of paper is my favorite thing ever. But no, let's do this.
I can't open it, Max. Are you fucking serious?
Let's not do this. Spencer, use the sword.
Pry it? What are you talking about? Did you really lock? Why did you
Why
lock
did you lock it?
Why did you lock it?
It was already locked.
Oh, boy.
How did you get it in there?
I'll see you next week.
Someone call Ken. Does Ken have the combination? She's got the combination.
Whoever opens the film reel is our champion.
I've opened the film reel.
At least we know it was closed. It was, wow, that was really securely locked. Just open the other side. That's how you get into the showstopper.
The showstopper has been activated, so
my
now it's
God.
useless. In here are confidential questions. Mike, I love his offering his own speed round. So the way this will work.
First to 3, right?
First
to 5 questions?
Yeah, 5 questions.
Yeah.
Your scores are now reversed. We're 0-0. You will be asked 5 speed round questions. Oh, God. Here we go. Oh, I got them. There we go. 5 speed round questions in here. This is speed round rules. You must answer them in speed round style.
It's a sweaty pen.
Whoever wins this speed round earns the belt. Are we ready for this?
Let's do it.
Okay, need a new piece of paper here. All right. Question 1. Best performance by an actor who only briefly appears in the movie.
Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross.
Willem Dafoe, Boondock Saints.
Ooh, okay. Boondock. All right, we got it. Wow. Dan, you went first, so you will speak first. Time begins when you begin speaking. I'm going to give them each 25 seconds.
Ooh.
Fair enough.
Alec Baldwin has one scene and one scene only in Glengarry Glen Ross. It's not more than 5 minutes long, and it is the one thing that people remember from that movie. He put his mark not only on that movie, but on 80s corporate culture. Put that coffee down. Coffee is for closers. It's one of the most brilliant, it's almost uninterrupted monologue, and it is an amazing piece of acting. It defined his career. It defined that movie, and I can't think of it's one of the best movie monologues of all time.
Spencer, time begins when you begin speaking. 25 seconds.
Alec Baldwin is a one-speech pony. That is a good movie, even without Alec Baldwin in it, whereas Boondock Saints is a terrible movie, except for Willem Dafoe's complete over-the-top performance. He is giving you so much that he elevates what, in looking back on, is a piece of shit movie, whereas Glengarry Glen Ross is fine, but it has a great speech in it by Alec Baldwin, but it doesn't make it... fuck. Don't give up. I gave up. I gave up.
Never surrender. Dan,
Are we doing
15
10?
seconds.
15.
15
Got it.
seconds.
Okay.
It's the best performance by an actor that was briefly in a movie. Willem Dafoe is as terrible in that movie as that movie is terrible. He adds to the legacy of that movie's terribleness. Alec Baldwin is brilliant. If you ask anybody about Glengarry Glen Ross, what do you remember about that movie? It's Alec Baldwin.
Glengarry Glen Ross is a play. It's a great monologue. It's mostly in the writing. It's not in the performance. Willem Dafoe is giving you something completely original. I've seen 80s people like Gordon Gekko before on film that give you a speech about how greed, no, they're kicking your ass. Willem Dafoe is something I've never seen on screen before, which is this
Whew, all right, that's time. I'm going to incorporate you, Mike. What did you think based on those arguments?
It's a little bit unfair to bring up a new argument when he has no time to respond with the bringing our.
That's how the speed round works.
Yeah, but I guess I would.
You gotta go with your gut a little bit more on this one.
Yes, and I would say that I'm gonna go with the Glenn Ross because it's the only part I remember.
Lon.
I had the exact opposite reaction. I love all sorts of stuff in Glenn Ross, and Willem Dafoe comes in and salvages the disaster that is Boondock Saints. So I gotta go Spencer.
There. That surprised me too. Let's ask the fans though. Raise your hands if you're voting for Dan and Glenn Ross. 1. Who's voting for Spencer and Boondock Saints?
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought I was just shaking the rust off.
Well, yeah, but see, I didn't like that you gave up.
Yeah.
That didn't help.
Forgot where I was.
But you got me with the Gordon Gekko thing. I've seen it before. I haven't seen Willem Dafoe anywhere. Best performance by an actor in a wholly previous movie. I gotta say, yeah, strangely, I'm giving Spencer that first point. So anybody's game. Here we go. Okay. Number 2.
Stole that one.
Daniel Day-Lewis or Meryl Streep?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Meryl Streep.
Okay, I think you both got fair choices. They're both fabulous actors. Meryl Streep for Dan. Spencer, you're going to be first, though, with Daniel Day-Lewis.
It takes a... wait.
Sorry.
Okay.
Whenever you want. Go.
I'll start over.
All right. It takes a lot to get Daniel Day-Lewis to put down his cobbling tools and go onto a movie set. He is the actor who chooses only the best roles to do, the performances that will really bring the best out of him and that deserve the amount of commitment. Meryl Streep's great. She's a working actress. She'll do rom-coms. She'll do high culture, low culture. That's fine. Daniel Day-Lewis, you know every time you see him in a movie, just the fact that he agreed to do it means that the movie is going to be incredible.
Dan.
I bring up Gangs of New York to that point, number 1. That is not an incredible movie.
Whoa!
Number 2, Daniel Day-Lewis is a borderline psychopath. Meryl Streep is an actor. She understands that you don't have to live the life of the character that you're in. She's a good enough actor that she can go home and live in an air conditioning apartment if she's playing somebody who lived in the 1800s. She doesn't have to live in a log cabin that she built for herself. She can act the part. She doesn't have to delude herself into thinking that she's the person I'm portraying.
Wow. Spencer gets 15 seconds.
Daniel Day-Lewis brings a certain amount of intensity to every role that you just don't get from Meryl Streep, and that's because he is such a crazy person off camera who commits and stays in character. That's not a knock against him. That's something to his credit because it even makes the story around the movie interesting, is that he lived as Lincoln in a cabin.
All right, Dan.
I love that Meryl Streep can make me believe that she is any character without having to be any character, without having to be the serious, dramatic character that Daniel Day-Lewis is in every single movie. Meryl Streep can be a real person. She can be in a comedy. She can be a corporate person. She can be somebody 200 years ago. She can be somebody from the future, and she does every single one of those convincingly.
When is she from the future?
She can do it.
He did his rebuttal, right?
Yes, they're both done. They're both done.
Lon and Mike, what do you think?
Daniel Day-Lewis easily. I think that, Meryl Streep wins. Daniel Day-Lewis loses. He plays the same. I agree that he does essentially the same thing every time.
Yeah, I had the same thought. I think Dan really won it in the last round there, where he talked about the sort of range of Meryl Streep, and
Yeah, I was with Spencer, and then Dan's counter really helped me a lot.
Was a really good argument,
yeah, I'm going to give that one to Dan as well. All right, we're tied still. Wow, it's not helping our 2.5-hour show. Here we go. Here we go.
Next one's worth 5.
Worst part 2 to a great original movie.
Ooh. Matrix Reloaded.
Okay.
Thinking. Iron Man 2.
Okay, we got Iron Man 2. Giving you a second there, Spencer. You'll be first. Tell me why Matrix Reloaded is the worst part 2 to a great original. Whenever you're ready.
The Matrix was a completely original world that the Wachowskis created, and you couldn't wait to spend more time into it. Not only that, but it ended on a cliffhanger where you were wondering, oh, what's Neo gonna do next against the machines? It turns out he's gonna pontificate and go up his own butthole with intro to philosophy lectures. There is no greater gap between the action and investment level in the characters between part 1 and part 2 than the Matrix. Yes, you're technically in the same world, but what they do with that world is so uninteresting and so cerebral, there's nothing for your heart.
All right, we'll give Dan a couple extra seconds there since Spencer stepped on. Go ahead, Dan.
If it was between part 2 and part 3, I'd be with you. But The Matrix Reloaded was that was a great movie that has the best action sequence of any of the Matrix movies in it. That highway sequence, it has some amazing visual effects. That wasn't where Matrix went off the rails. It was in part 3. Iron Man 2 took a movie that reinvented the superhero genre and gave us the template for every disappointing movie that would come into the superhero genre. The world building, the laziness, you don't advance the characters, you're bringing in people that shouldn't be in the movie. It is everything that comic book movies shouldn't be, and it's even...
Sorry, before I start, can you repeat the question?
Yes. Worst part 2 to a great original movie.
I would actually want to focus on how Iron Man 1 is not a great original movie because it's an existing franchise, and the sin of Iron Man 2 was just to work in more stuff from the MCU and just make it a little overstuffed. Matrix 1 was brilliant and original, and what they did in part 2 was less original. Yes, it still had great visual effects.
Iron Man 1 is a great movie. It birthed the MCU. If that movie hadn't worked, the entire MCU wouldn't have worked. It gave the superhero genre a new life. And Matrix Reloaded, again, technically, it's an advancement over the first one. It's not a huge drop off from the first one. 3 is the one that people hate. 2 is the one in the middle that still pushes the envelope.
I'm going to give you each 5 more seconds.
One sequence does not a movie make. That movie is a complete disappointment when it came out today and in the future. 3 is on par with 2.
6 seconds for Dan.
I came out of Matrix Reloaded still excited about the Matrix franchise. I came out of Iron Man 2 concerned now for the future of the MCU and those movies.
All right, interesting. I was stuck there, but that's helped a little bit, but that's a tough one.
That is a really tough one.
Let's go to the fans first. Let's raise your hands. If you're voting for Spencer and Matrix Reloaded, hold your hand up. No one. Oh, okay. You're all voting for Dan? Okay. Mike or Lon, anyone have a different opinion?
No, I thought Dan edged that one out as well.
Yeah, he helped me in there in the end, too. I was a little on the fence, but he did come out with a good closer. Mike?
I was the same way. I think that the arguments about how it saved what could have been, that's the one.
All right, all good. All right, so we're Dan's up by 1. Here we go. Number 4. Best movie with a title that's 6 words or longer.
I already fought this one.
Well, then answer quickly.
Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Yeah, you'd argue that exact answer on another show. All right, hang on.
Is that fair?
Was that on our final list?
That's been on a show. That's been on.
If you want to do another one, I'm fine.
Well, how about 6 words?
6 words exactly?
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's gonna take a while.
All right.
It's not like we're live.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, I know, and I'm trying to think now.
See if I can come up with one.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah. Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh, wow. He got it.
Okay, you got it. Gotta accept it now. I was about to change it, but since he delivered it.
Fuck.
Give me a...
Star Wars Return of the Jedi?
I think you're omitting the episode 6 part.
Yeah, I mean,
that's tough.
Yeah, I would probably give that to him, but it's right on the bubble.
Star Wars. It is 6. Okay. All right, you get it. Monty
Because it would
Python
be
and the Holy
episode.
Grail versus Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Okay. Dan.
I will take the best Monty Python movie over maybe the 3rd or 4th best Star Wars movie any day of the week. I think that Monty Python and the Holy Grail is still revered as a classic nowadays. A classic piece of absurdist comedy, a classic piece of English comedy. That's what most people know the Pythons from. They came from TV to that movie. Return of the Jedi is in the middle of Star Wars films. It's not that great. It's overshadowed by Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And in some people's eyes, The Force Awakens. The longer it goes, the further it goes down people's lists.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail is a very quotable sketch movie. It is not a cohesive film as far as something with a beginning, middle, and an end. Return of the Jedi is a beautifully told conclusion to a grand arcing story that has the tying together of all these plot lines that people have been breathlessly awaiting for decades, and it finally brings you closure, whereas Monty Python is a platform for Monty Python to serve jokes. They've done that on television on Flying Circus. They did that in their future movies. It's not unique in their pantheon.
History says that the jump from television to film usually doesn't work. Monty Python reinvented themselves and in a way reinvented the genre when they did that. That's still a groundbreaking comedy. Return of the Jedi did the Death Star again and space battles again. It's the Ewoks, the worst part of that 3. It's a letdown. It doesn't even live up to the first 2 movies in that. Monty Python...
All right, final seconds for Spencer. 15.
If you look at things like The Matrix, the third one is the hardest one to stick. The fact that it's even a very good movie is impressive because people's expectations are so high, and the fact that they met them and at least gave you a satisfying conclusion is a testament to how good the third Star Wars is.
Ooh, all right. Lon, Mike, thoughts?
I thought Spencer was doing really well until the end there. It kind of feels like he's sort of conceding the point. Like, well, listen, it was the last one, and that's hard to do, so it's pretty good. Like, I think until then he might have had it, but I gotta go with Dan.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I was really impressed with his first one. It surprised me. He came out the gate super strong, so I want to hear from the fans. Anybody thoughts? Is anyone voting for Spencer?
Oh.
Yeah, all right, we got some votes for Spencer. Why? Tell real quick.
He at the beginning, the way he went in and he attacked the question, I thought it was great actually.
I'll give it to Dan because his first was strong and his second was even stronger.
Dakota, you were voting for Spencer?
I was voting for Spencer because overall, I think it serves a better story.
Kind of zoned out, so I don't know.
Thanks, Amar.
Keeping it honest.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
That's a great movie, yeah. The first one with the Spencer, though, I got these points down. It was a lot more interesting and hard because you pointed out they've done it on TV. It's a sketch movie. Dan did come back strongly with that ending with the but some people like the Ewoks. I'm giving Spencer that point. We're going to this final question to keep us interesting.
There are going to be a strong contention of people, and maybe me, that argue that the name of that movie is Star Wars Episode 6.
Well, you should have said that at the beginning.
I did, and you ignored me.
I also ceded my original answer.
Well, we accepted it. So if this is a controversial, then it's controversial.
Hashtag controversial.
You know it's gonna be.
All right. Best. No, wait, sorry. This is too debatable. All right, here we go. What movie vehicle do you most want in your garage?
In my
garage? The DeLorean from Back to the Future.
Cameron's dad's car in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Okay. All right, Dan, you're up first. This is for all the marbles.
And not only is the DeLorean a bomb-ass car, we're in 2015, so we're past 2015, so it can fly. You don't have to worry about the plutonium. It takes garbage. You don't have to gas it up. You can. By the way, you can time travel. Not only is it a great practical vehicle, also you can travel through time, which is pretty amazing. I think that I don't want a car that I have to like park with 3 spaces around me because I'm afraid somebody's gonna ding it, and I don't want that broke-ass car that's at the end of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is how we lost sight of that car, by the way.
Spencer, time begins when you begin speaking.
You didn't say what car you want to drive around town. You said what car you want in your garage. What do you want to show off? What's the coolest car that you can say, hey, check this out. This is not something you're going to take on joyrides. This is not something you're going to take around and fuck up the whole space-time continuum and have you hook up with your own mom. This is just a car that you want to sit in a garage car, a show car, something that you look at and you go, wow, that's impressive. Don't touch, just look. It's a garage.
Right? Didn't use all his time. Cocky there. Okay, but it came out strong. Dan, you have 15 seconds.
So you're saying the choice that I need to make is car I can look and do nothing with, or a time machine that can take me anywhere in the space-time continuum. I'm not going to mess up the space-time continuum. I'm not an idiot. I want it in my garage so I can get in the car and take it out of the garage, which is why you have a car, by the way. Don't buy a car to park it in the garage.
All right, last 15 seconds for Spencer. Make them count.
We're talking show cars, and a Ferrari at least you can get out and about on the street and like cruise around and look for chicks. A DeLorean with a giant pipe hanging out the back, someone's gonna go, oh, that's a weird Back to the Future fan. Also, DeLoreans broke down all the time. They're crappy cars, that's why they don't make them anymore. The body's made of aluminum, they're junk.
If you've been listening to me this way.
You're done. Right? They both went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody went. Everybody went.
Mike, would you like to chime in?
Why didn't anyone say Mater?
Didn't say what car you want to have sex with.
All right. Mike, let's go to you. Spencer?
Spencer wins.
Why?
Space-time time travel can be scary. You're going to be doing weird
it's
things.
Weird. I wrote that too. Fucking up space-time.
I don't like that, and it's a more beautiful car.
We were missing. I think if Dan had said like why you want a why you want to time travel. I think he could have
Who doesn't know why you want to time travel? It's the coolest thing you can do in the universe.
We had Spencer arguing, here's why it's dangerous and scary, and I didn't hear a counter argument for that.
He did say it was cool. He said time travel's cool. Let's go to the fans, because this is important. This is for the marbles. Fans, thoughts, chime in quick. We're quickly here. We're way over
Dan,
time.
because time travel and then broke ass car. I love it.
Moody.
The DeLorean doesn't even look that nice from the outside, so I give it to Spencer.
Wow. Yeah,
Spencer had the better argument, hands down.
How come? Tell me. No, don't just say that. Well, give me a reason why.
Well, he gave better reasons as to where you can actually drive that car and you're not gonna F up anybody's past or future. So.
Or screw your mom, as you said.
Screw your mom.
I'm not gonna screw my mom. You don't know that. Someone else might. You might. Your buddy might. Amar.
Spenny G, because it's about the look.
That's it.
Dan's getting worried. All right.
I moved over here.
We both interesting. All right, so it comes down to me, but the fans and the couch are all leaning towards Spencer. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me because I think Dan, it's a cool. I think it is a cool car. You're being unfair then, Spencer. But yeah, it's the fact you point out it's a crappy car. It fucks up space time, and you want to show off. You went a little creative there, which is risky. But I have to reward the risk. And I gotta go with the consensus. I can't believe this is happening.
I can.
Spencer just cut the point. Spencer is our new movie fights champion. Oh my god!
It happened.
The belt is Spencer.
I can't even.
Dan thinks this is rigged. This is not rigged.
Wow.
Come on.
Why would you say that?
What you just said. I think I know why
rigged.
is this happening. You just implied that in your disdain of what I just said.
I will let the fans watch the show, and everyone has a different opinion.
The fans were in the room, and the fans picked Spencer.
Wow.
We'll see what they say at home. I have no doubt this will be controversial.
How many times?
Hashtag 8 words. Hashtag 8 words.
Just rigged.
I lost that point.
Just rigged. The entire YouTube chat room is just rigged.
We accepted the answer, and it's sorry we did it. It is what it is. Spencer just got the belt. Spencer, are you surprised?
I'm shocked. I'm in complete shock right now. This feels wrong, but I can get used to it.
Jesus. Well, Spencer, you are now the movie fights champion for. We'll see how that means.
Yeah,
We'll see what that means.
I'll put it online anytime, Dan. Anytime, any place.
Can we not wait 10 months before we put the belt back up
we
on
are
the line
going
again?
to with the new edition of Live Fights.
I want that belt.
We
back.
are gonna make this.
What are we doing right now?
You get to fight. You get to fight now. I'm excited for this. Actually,
What are you guys doing for the next 3
in this
hours?
room, anytime, anywhere.
He is challenging you, Mike. Are you going to challenge him too?
Spencer?
Yeah.
Or Dan?
Either of them.
Yeah.
Mike Carlson, Spencer J. Gilbert. Everyone knows where you are. It's Spencer J. Gilbert.
What a
Holy
shock.
crap. Dan Merle at Merle Dan. I know you're going to be mad at me. I'm sorry.
No, listen, Spenny played a good game.
He played the comedy.
You accepted the answers you accepted, and we both made our arguments, and that's how the game is played. And I accept
thank
the
you.
results.
Thank
I
you,
will
sir.
let the fans at home have their opinions.
Hey, I wouldn't want it any other way. I love our fans. There will be some shock. They'll hate me, whatever. Lon Harris at Lon's on Twitter. Bravo. The fans are just upset, I imagine.
It's a good mix between I can't believe it, and rigged.
Not rigged. It's not rigged. Mike, I gotta thank you, Mike. Dan, it's not rigged. Can we at least agree it's not rigged? The question may not have been fair, but it's not rigged. Come on.
I love that setup. It's unfair.
Are you claiming it's rigged?
No, it's unfair, but it's not.
It may be
I will
unfair.
concede that point.
Yeah, it may be unfair, but it's not rigged. Thank you, Dan.
It wasn't rigged. It wasn't rigged when you judged it for me, and it's not rigged when you judged it for Spencer.
It's not a
That's fine.
schmodown.
I will agree.
All right,
Now wait, Signor! I am the Schmodown champion, Signor! Don't think you can talk that trash here just because you're on Screen Junkies, my friend! No, sir!
I love the Schmodown. That was a joke. That was a joke. I love you, Christian. That's a very good show, and you have earned that belt, sir. Good for you.
Yeah.
It's a legit show. I like to rub Christian the wrong way. It's not rigged. I lost fair and square. I want to thank Mike over there. Mike, bravo job. Did the fans like Mike? Because I loved Mike. Mike was amazing.
The fans loved having a debate because they felt like it changed. Not only it changed your judging, it changed how the fighters approached.
They really came more now. So, Michael, anything you'd like to plug? You're at Harvard Westlake Debate Club.
Yeah, Harvard Westlake debate team. That's it. Yeah.
Bravo, sir. That was a lot of fun. You brought some, and I gotta thank all our fans quickly. We were the longest show ever, but was that worth it? Was that good?
Oh, this was the best. And Angry Dan is, I see it live. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you guys, Moody, Dizzle, Dakota, Amar. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I'm glad we got to have some witnesses here because this is going to go down historically, and we'll see how the books are written because I know there's going to be some talk about this one. But man, thank you all for watching. That was an amazing live show, our biggest ever. I hope you liked it and get excited because we will be doing this more live on Thursdays. This man is pissed. He wants that belt back. I'm excited to see what that means actually. So I love that. I'm sad for him, but I love that he's gonna come back strong. You know he's gonna. And Spencer, my God, wow, shocker. Mike Carlson.